45 million people are
Did he say
struggling
87%?
with student debt.
Yeah.
That can't be right.
500,000 people tonight are sleeping out on the street, including 30,000 veterans. That is not an economy that's working for the American people. That's an economy working for the 1%. We're going to create an economy for all, not just wealthy.
That's going to be fact-checked. We know that. Needs to be.
Mayor Bloomberg, I'll let you respond to that. Do you think Senator Sanders' economy would be better for America than President?
I think that Donald Trump thinks it would be better if he's president. I do not think so. Vladimir Putin thinks that Donald Trump should be president of the United States, and that's why Russia is helping.
Are we back on? Missed that.
Yep.
Let me tell Mr. Putin, okay, I'm not a good friend of President Xi of China. I think President Xi is an authoritarian leader. And let me tell Mr. Putin, who interfered in the 2016 election, try to bring Americans against Americans. Hey, Mr. Putin, if I'm president of the United States, trust me, you're not going to interfere in any more American elections.
Senator
We
Warren?
know what Russia wants is chaos.
So look, the way I see this
That's pretty
is
delayed.
that Bernie is winning right now because the Democratic Party is a progressive party.
It's up, but it's our
and
intro.
Progressive ideas are popular ideas, even if there are a lot of people on this stage who don't want to say so. You know, but Bernie and I agree on a lot of things, but I think I would make a better president than Bernie. And the reason for that is that getting a progressive agenda enacted is going to be really hard, and it's going to take someone who digs into the details to make it happen. Bernie and I both wanted to help rein in Wall Street. In 2008, we both got our chance, but I dug in, I fought the big banks, I built the coalitions, and I won. Bernie and I both want to see you.
We already have 480 views.
But Bernie's plan doesn't explain how to get there, doesn't show how we're
1,000.
going to get
We're
enough
over 1,000.
allies into it, and doesn't show enough about how we're going to pay for it. I dug in, I did the work, and then Bernie's team trashed me for it. We need a president who is going to dig in, do the hard work, and actually get it done. Progressives have got one shot, and we need to spend it with a leader who will get something done. We want to bring you in this conversation.
I think we're here.
Why would the Russians want to be working on behalf of Bernie Sanders?
I'll tell you what the Russians want. They don't have a political party. They want chaos.
Yeah, that's the one where
And
you're watching
chaos
this,
is
Ron.
what is coming our way. I mean, look, if you think the last 4 years has been chaotic, divisive, toxic, exhausting, imagine spending the better part of 2020 with Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. Think about what that will be like for this country.
I got to say this.
Please.
Meanwhile, folks at
The
home
reason why the Russians are
to South Bend
helping,
figure out what any of this
as the intelligence report says, helping Bernie Sanders win is because they have a political ideology and a political assumption. And that assumption is Bernie Sanders is the weaker Democratic candidate against Donald Trump. That does not mean it's true, but it means they believe that it's true. So even in their interference in the Democratic primary, it is still part of the same overall context of their interference in 2016.
To me, that storyline makes a lot more sense than
Right.
the alternative.
Right, then,
For sure.
yes.
Parts of the economy makes any sense for working people or for families. I think that what we need to do is to present an alternative that includes a vibrant, competitive private sector. But we all know unchecked capitalism has failed. The answer is no.
So they're going hard on the economy and capitalism.
The answer is for us to break the corporate stranglehold on our government and have the government work for the people again.
Vice President Biden?
Well, let me just finish, because we need to have an alternative to Donald Trump. I'm talking about doubling the minimum wage, cutting taxes by 10% for everybody who makes less than $250,000, and creating over 4.5 million good-paying.
I think it's interesting that Bernie Sanders called out the billionaire Bloomberg, but Steyer's a billionaire also, and he didn't say anything about him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Create a growing, prosperous economy
Mr. Steyer.
that works for American working people.
Mr. Steyer, thank you. Your time.
That's going to be a tough sell, and they know it on the economy. There's a lot of other things they could be talking about.
Walking distance here is Mother Emanuel Church. 9 people shot dead by a white supremacist. Bernie voted 5 times against the Brady bill and wanted a waiting period. No, let me finish. And waited a waiting period of 12 hours. I'm not saying he's responsible for the 9 deaths, but that man would not have been able to get that weapon with the waiting period had been what I suggest until you are cleared.
He kind of just said Bernie is responsible in a way.
Barack Obama, he wanted a primary. He said we should primary Barack Obama. Someone should. And in fact, the president was weak, and our administration was in fact not up to it. Look, folks, let's talk about progressive. Progressive is getting things done, and that's what we got done.
Christopher Walcott, if you can hear us, join in on the CBS 46 Facebook discussion.
Pete mentioned, I'm hearing my name mentioned a little bit tonight. I wonder why. And maybe, Pete mentions what the American people want. I will tell you, Pete, what the American people want, and Joe, what the American people want. They don't want candidates to be running to billionaires for huge amounts of funding.
Let's do this once and for all.
Pete has gotten funding
You've got people believing
from over
something
50
that is false.
billionaires.
Well, how many? 5 minutes in?
Yeah.
It's getting heated already.
Yeah.
By the way, and a lot of the issues we'll be discussing tonight are issues I raised 4 years ago. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition free, and finally doing what every other major country on earth does, guaranteeing health care to all people as a human right, to a Medicare for all, single-payer system.
I can't allow this to stand because it's just not true. Senator Sanders has got people believing something that is untrue about my campaign. The idea that most of my campaign is funded by billionaires.
Say that, Pete.
50 people. All right. In Charleston alone, just in Charleston, over 2,000 people have contributed to my campaign. That means the dollars that have come to my campaign just from Charleston is more than the dollars that have come from the 50 people that you mentioned. Grassroots contributions are the lifeblood of my campaign. In fact, I shouldn't miss the opportunity. If you're watching right now and you support my campaign.
And just remember, he's talking because he just broke the rules and interjected himself.
And you're a billionaire.
But this is a debate stage.
Taxes. But if you'd like to defeat Donald Trump, please go to PeteForAmerica.com and donate the legal maximum of $2,000.
I'm waiting for Elizabeth Warren's first zinger because she's got several
She's
up
ready.
her sleeve.
Yeah.
She's ready.
To another topic, we're in South Carolina. It's the first primary with a significant black voting population.
Yeah.
Your numbers appear to be slipping with black voters. And I'm wondering if you could respond about why that is happening to you at this particular time.
Well, first of all, the latest poll I saw, my numbers, I'm still 15 points ahead. The latest poll.
Yes, you're correct.
Look.
But Senator Sanders is in striking distance of you. You are within the margin of error in this state.
Well, it depends which poll. Look, I've earned the vote. I've worked like the devil to earn the vote of the African American community, not just here but across the country. I've been coming here for years and years, creating jobs here, making sure that the port, for example, that employs 1 in 11 people, we put $500 million in our administration just into this county. We've created jobs for people. The people know me. My entire career has been wrapped up in dealing with civil rights and civil liberties. I don't expect anything. I plan to earn the vote. I'm here to ask. I'm here to earn it.
Big
And
applause line.
Yeah, and remember, each candidate gets to bring their own team, okay? So a lot of the applause you're hearing,
Maybe from their
That's correct,
their
yes.
own team.
Mr. Biden, will you continue if you do not win South Carolina? You have said that South Carolina will determine
Great
the outcome
question.
of this presidential race. If you don't win South Carolina, will you continue in
I
the
will
race?
win South Carolina.
Yeah, if he doesn't win South Carolina, he has to pack it up, and he knows it. That's why he can't really answer that question.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you about a question that impacts the black and brown community. You've apologized for stop and frisk repeatedly. What exactly are you apologizing for?
We let it get out of control, and when I realized that, I cut it back by 95%, and I've apologized and asked for forgiveness. I've met with black leaders to try to get an understanding of how I can better position myself and what I should have done and what I should do next time. But let me tell you, I have been working very hard. We've improved the school system for black and brown students in New York City. We've increased the jobs that are available to them. We've increased the housing that's available to them.
But what more
We have
can you do
programs
about
like
this issue, Mr. Mayor, to put people's fears and skepticism to rest?
I think
it
they just-
continues to follow you.
No, well, that's because it's in their interest to promote that. But if you talk to the people in New York City, I have over 100 black elected officials that have endorsed me. A lot of them are in the audience tonight. And I've earned the respect of the people in New York City. I was the mayor of the largest, most populous city in the United States for 12 years. And people will tell you it's a lot better city today. It is safer for everybody. The school system is better.
Follow-up question
The
would be,
budget's
is
under
part of that
control.
due
We've
to
done the
stop and
things that
frisk?
people need in
Actually, the
New York
science doesn't bear it out
ethnicities.
when you look at the background.
Okay,
Right.
well,
That there were other factors that decrease crime in New York.
and that may have played a factor. That may have played a factor as well.
Do you think the New York City's implementation of stop and frisk was racist?
Yes, in effect it was, because it was about profiling people based on their race. And the mayor even said that they disproportionately stopped white people too often and minorities too little. And I'm not here to score points. I come at this with a great deal of humility because we have had a lot of issues, especially when it comes to racial justice and policing in my own community.
And remember, the federal courts said it was unconstitutional not to
Right.
stop and frisk, but to stop and frisk without a reasonable suspicion of a crime.
Right, right.
None of us have the experience, the lived experience of, for example, walking down the street or in a mall and feeling eyes on us, regarding us as dangerous without knowing the first thing about us just because of the color of our skin. None of us have the experience that black women have had that drives that maternal mortality gap that we are all rightly
He's got these
horrified by,
responses
of
ready to
going
go.
out
Oh, he's ready.
and being less
Well,
likely
he's
to have
in the
abortion and being in pain.
state that has the highest African American participation rate of a Democratic primary. They got to talk to them, and that's what he's doing.
And it's a fine line to toe that you're not
Pandering.
perceived as pandering.
Right, right. I like how you put that, perceived as pandering.
You
Yeah.
have to be authentic, and
Yeah.
people can see when you're not.
Yeah.
Not saying that he's not, but
You gotta do something about it than rather just demagogue about it.
Senator Klobuchar, was the way that the mayor implemented
He's looking
stop and frisk
frustrated.
racist?
Yes, and I think that what we need to do, instead of just reviewing everything from the past, is talk about where
Hi,
we're going
Nicole.
to go forward. Martin Luther
Sean.
King once said that we are all
Adam,
tied in
welcome.
a single garment of
Let us know if y'all have any
destiny, and
questions.
that what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. So when there is racism in the criminal justice system, then we need to fix it. And to me, that means sentencing reform like the
Sean had
First
the
Step
same question.
Act,
Is it
and
safer because of
extending
stop and
that to the
frisk?
states with the Second Step Act. It means equal opportunity, because if we don't pass Representative Clyburn's bill out of South Carolina here to invest in impoverished communities, we're never going to get to that single garment of destiny. And we also need to do something about child care, about making sure we increase the minimum wage, and then finally voting. While we are all sitting here debating, Wisconsin has kicked hundreds of thousands of people off of their voting rolls. Georgia kicked 100,000 off. As president, I will get voting rights to be a reality.
And we'll answer some of your questions during the first break.
I want to direct this question to you because Mayor Bloomberg has said he got in this race late because he doesn't believe that any of you on stage can beat Donald Trump. You said Mayor Bloomberg is not the safest candidate, he is the riskiest candidate. What did you mean by that?
I mean that Mayor Bloomberg, let's think of it this way. We're here in Charleston, and you know who's going to be in Charleston later this week? Is Donald Trump. He's going to be here to raise money for his buddy, Senator Lindsey Graham. Who funded Lindsey Graham's campaign for re-election last time? It was Mayor Bloomberg. And that's not the only right-wing senator that Mayor Bloomberg has funded. In 2016, he dumped $12 million into the Pennsylvania Senate race to help re-elect an anti-choice right-wing Republican senator. And I just want to say, the woman challenger was terrific. She lost by a single point. In 2012, he scooped in to try to defend another Republican senator against a woman challenger. That was me. It didn't work, but he tried hard. I
care how much money Mayor Bloomberg has. The core of the Democratic Party will never trust him. He has not earned their trust. I will. And the fact that he cannot earn the trust of the core of the Democratic Party means he is the riskiest candidate standing on this stage.
I would push back on that and say 60 to 70% of Democratic voters say the most important thing to them is your ability to beat Trump.
That's right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I stepped on the pile that was still smoldering on 9/11. I know what to do. I've shown I know how to run a country. I've run the city, which is almost the same size, bigger than most countries in the world. I am not the least. I'm the one choice that makes some sense. I have the experience.
That makes some
I have
sense.
The resources, and I have the record. And all of the sideshows that the senator wants to bring up have nothing to do with that. When people hired me to run New York City 3 times in an overwhelmingly Democratic progressive city, they elected me again and again.
Mr. Vice President, I was mentioned in this. I'd like to respond. He called me out by name. And referred to what I talk about as a sideshow. You know, this is personal for me. When I was 21 years old, I got my first job as a special education teacher. I loved that job. And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. The principal wished me luck and gave my job to someone else. Pregnancy discrimination, you bet. But I was 21 years old. I didn't have a union to protect me, and I didn't have any federal law.
I'm trying to see the connection.
So I packed up my stuff and I went home. At least I didn't have a boss who said to me, kill it. The way that Mayor Bloomberg alleged to have said to one of his pregnant employees. People want a chance to hear.
They're booing her.
People want a chance to hear from the women who.
I never said that. And for the record, if she was a teacher in New York City, she would never have had that problem. We treated our teachers the right way, and the unions will tell you exactly that.
This is a turnaround. He gets an applause. She got boos.
Let us have the women have an opportunity to speak. The Bloomberg corporations and Mayor Bloomberg himself have been accused of discrimination. They
Accused, that's the appropriate word, but the attack she just put on him was as if it had happened.
There is nothing to hide here. Then sign a blanket release and let those women speak out so that they can tell their stories the way I can tell my story without having.
The moderators got to get this under control because this is coming down to Warren and Bloomberg only.
I want to give the mayor an opportunity to respond because she has raised concerns about women in your workplace. At the last debate, you said some of your female employees might not have liked some of your jokes. Did these women take your jokes wrong, or were you wrong to make the jokes?
Probably wrong to make the jokes. I don't remember what they were, so I assume if it bothered them, I was wrong, and I apologize. I'm sorry for that. But what happened here is we went back 40 years, and we could only find 3 cases where women said they were uncomfortable. Nobody accused me of doing anything other than just making a comment or two. And what the senator did suggest was that we release these women from the non-disclosure agreement. I did that 2 days later, and my company has said we will not use non-disclosure agreements ever again. The senator has got it, and I don't know what else she wants us to do.
I'll be clear.
We're following exactly what she asked to do.
I'll tell you exactly
And the
what
trouble
Wow.
is, with this senator, enough is never enough for what this. I'm going to start focusing on some of these other things. We just cannot continue to relitigate this every time. We did what she
It's the
asked.
second time.
And thank you. We've probably made the world better because of it. And by my company renouncing using these, we probably changed, hopefully, the corporate landscape all across America.
No,
If you get nominated, we'll be relitigating this all year.
do what I ask.
Senator Warren, that is a very serious charge that you leveled at the mayor.
Yes.
You told a woman to get an abortion. What evidence do you have of that?
Thank
Her
you,
own
Gail.
words.
And Mayor Bloomberg, could you respond to this?
I never said it. Period. End of story. Categorically, never said it.
Now Senator Warren has to provide her source
Yep.
for the information that she's given.
Well, she said the woman
What she
said
was
it.
talking about. But right now, I'm sorry if she heard what she thought she heard or whatever happened. I didn't take any pleasure in that, and we've just
What
gone
I
along, but I
asked
never
the
said
mayor
it.
to
Come
This
on.
is getting really
is
uncomfortable.
To do a release of all people who have
We are
discrimination
doing that,
claims,
Senator.
who have
We want to get to the
I think people are getting frustrated because none of this has anything to do with a policy moving forward for the country, right? So people are booing now out of frustration.
Yesterday, you released information about how you will pay for your major proposals, but not all of your details are clear. You proposed more than $50 trillion in new spending. You said Medicare for all will
Over
cost
a 10-year
$30 trillion. But you can only explain how you'll pay for just about half of that. Can you do the math for the rest of us?
How many hours do you have?
2.
The answer is the problem. No, it's not the problem. All right, let's talk about Medicare for all. I'm sure you're familiar with the new study that just came out of Yale University, published in Lancet magazine, one of the prestigious medical journals in the world. You know what it said? Medicare for all will lower healthcare costs in this country by $450 billion a year and save 68,000 lives of people who otherwise would have died. What we need to do is to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all people, not have thousands of separate insurance plans which are costing us some $500 billion a year to administer. Our plan, we have laid out options all over the place. One of the options is a 7.5% payroll tax on employers, which will save them substantial sums of money. Another
If I'm not mistaken, we've heard from Amy one time so far. And
Yeah, and it was barely.
Yep.
Yeah.
60 Minutes
Here we go.
this weekend, he said he wasn't going to rattle through the nickels and the dimes. Well, let me tell you how many nickels and dimes we're talking about. Nearly $60 trillion. Do you know how much that is for all of his programs? That is 3 times the American economy, not the federal government, the entire American economy. The Medicare for All plan alone, page 8 clearly says that it will kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years. That is true. As one prominent Democrat once said, we should pay attention to where the voters of this country are, Bernie. That prominent Democrat was Barack Obama a few months ago. And I think that's what we should do. They are not with you on spending nearly $60 trillion. What I think we should do is make things more affordable, nonprofit public option, make sure we're paying for long-term care better, take on the pharmaceuticals like you.
I just love the hands in the air.
They're all up.
Right.
They're all up. Well, healthcare is a winning issue for them with the American people.
That's right.
And they need to spend a lot of time on this vetting it.
First of all, I think she was talking about my plan, not yours.
I think we were talking about math, and it doesn't take 2 hours to do the math. Because let's talk about what it adds up. Let's talk about math indeed. Okay, so here's the math. No, here's the math. Doing nothing is what will happen.
This is actually great.
Senator Sanders?
Moderator, is my turn?
Senators, you have been name-checked. You are allowed to respond.
What the Health and Human Services
You got to love the name check.
in analyzing healthcare costs, what recent Yale study has said is that your program would cost some $50 trillion over a 10-year period. We would continue to pay, in some cases, 10 times more for the same exact prescription drugs. What every study out there, conservative or progressive, says Medicare for all will save money.
At some point, the numbers, the trillions, and you said this trillion, and you said this trillion, it just, I think at some point people just, you tune it out.
Yep.
You can't even grasp that kind of money.
But let's be honest, these numbers are bull. And the reason why is because none of them are economists. They don't have noted economists creating these figures, because if they did, they would tell us who the economists were. So they're creating these numbers. These are projections. These are trajectories. And typically, 99% of these projections are always wrong when you get into the details. The government, with all of our great economists, when they worked on the Affordable Care Act, they were wrong about the numbers too. Even in the state of Georgia, when we talked about getting more money in our revenue, the economists in Georgia were wrong about that. So these numbers,
And there's a lot of different ways to reach different outcomes.
Yes.
You can do math a lot of different ways.
Right.
You say, I'm going to take from this bucket and add to this bucket, and they can justify it in any number of ways. But you get so far in the weeds, I think you start to lose people. I don't know if you at home agree with that sentiment or not, but.
So let's do some math. Senator Sanders at one point said it was going to be 40 trillion, then it was 30, then it was 17. It's an incredible shrinking price tag. At some point has said it is unknowable to even see
He
what
has
the
said
price
all
tag
of the
would be.
above.
Now there are new numbers going. I'll tell you exactly what it adds up to. It adds up to 4 more years of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's a good
He's
line.
making the electability argument again, right? But I do think,
Keep going back to that.
yeah, I'm sure, because still the majority of Democrats say electability is number one. I think Bernie Sanders, he can't say things like, I don't know the numbers in an interview, and then come on the debate stage and say, hey, here are the numbers.
Right.
All right, there's a disconnect in the message, and people get that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of voters still on the fence about who they want to support in the final ballot.
Yep. And healthcare is probably the biggest issue where they can differentiate from each other.
Vice President Biden, please.
I guess the only way you do this is jump in and speak twice as long as you should. Here's the deal.
Great point, Biden. Everybody's been breaking these damn rules all day, right? Biden, you got to break the rules, man.
Get on in there.
Right. Yeah.
Concerned about race. Well, my good friend on the end of this platform, he in fact bought a system that was a private prison system. After he knew that in fact what happened was they hog-tied young men in prison here in this state. They in fact made sure that in Georgia they did not have health care for the people who were being held. They in fact went on and he said after he knew that he bought it, and then he said he was proud of his accomplishment. You talk about what we're talking about with Bernie. Bernie in fact hasn't passed much of anything. The fact of the matter is,
Finally, somebody's going after the front runner. Bernie Sanders is the front runner. This is what happens. This is how you play the game of politics. This is how you debate. Uh-oh.
I'm not quite sure what to make of everything Biden just said there. That was an awful lot.
look at what's happening here. We have to win the Senate back. And by the way, I went into all of those races that got 41 new Democrats. The majority of them are supporting me for president.
Is everybody going to gloss over what Biden just said there?
Mr. Mayor, you're allowed to respond.
In a prison company thinking they do a better job, and I investigated and I sold it. Okay. You knew when you bought it they'd done that. And in fact, since then, I've worked to end the use of private prisons in my home state, and we've ended it. I've started a bank to support black ownership of businesses, women ownership of businesses, and Latino ownership of businesses.
Let me tell you why.
Past investment.
A past investment. It was a prison. The prison was doing unthinkable things to prisoners. Biden attacked Steyer. Now, the question is why? Why did he do that? Because Steyer has been making some real progress in South Carolina, and he knows it. And he wanted to tap him down a tap. That's why he went after the guy who really hasn't been polling well nationally at all.
But you're right, has been chipping away at the African American support for Biden.
Right.
Slowly but surely. But a valid argument, what he made?
It is a valid argument.
It is?
Because
I'm unfamiliar. It must be an ad that's running in South Carolina, I'd imagine. Biden against Steyer.
it could be. It could be. But he did make that investment, and it was controversial.
Years ago?
Years ago, but he's the guy who's all for reform of prisons. Now you have to answer, why weren't you for it in your own personal investment?
But I do not think that this is the best person to lead the ticket. And if you want to talk about getting things done and make a comparison, according to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, last Congress, I was the most effective Democrat in the U.S. Senate on 15 metrics. Bernie and Elizabeth were in the bottom half. It matters. It matters if you can actually get things done. It is not just who talks the best, who actually gets things done. And especially with the
I think for Klobuchar, that's a losing argument to say she was the most effective U.S. senator, because 99% of people in the United States never heard of her until she ran for president, right? And there's still some people who have not heard of her while she's running for president.
Let's just go on the record. They talked about 40 Democrats
He's got a lot going on with the.
Yeah, he really does. They need to take Bernie Sanders out of the middle. He can't handle being in the middle. Bernie Sanders, yeah, he can't handle the middle seat, okay?
Ability to control this president, I got that. Number two, when you talk about money, let's put this in perspective. The federal budget is $4.5 trillion a year. We get $3.5 trillion in revenue. We lose $1 trillion a year. That's why the federal budget deficit is right now. The debt is $20 trillion going up to 21. We just cannot afford some of the stuff people talk about. But if you let me finish. If you keep on going, we will elect Bernie. Bernie will lose to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump and the House and the Senate and some of the state houses will all go red, and then between gerrymandering and pointing.
So he's instilling the fear, reminding people.
It's bigger than just the presidency.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Mayor Bloomberg has a solid and strong and enthusiastic base of support. Problem is they're all billionaires. Now,
I think this is a losing argument for him.
on the other hand,
But it's untrue.
Everybody hear that boo?
I know, but
Even Chris over there's laughing at
right,
that.
exactly. But it's factually untrue. I mean, Bloomberg has some real political cats who have connections to grassroots communities all across this country supporting his campaign. So the notion that only billionaires are supporting him is just false.
Well, I think it's a little out of touch when a millionaire is criticizing a billionaire.
And that's kind of what Bloomberg brought up last time. It's like, you're part of the
Where's
1%.
that line? Come on. And he took a lot of heat this week for that.
Yeah.
Talking about, oh, I've got the 3 houses and everything else, and it's a little hypocritical.
I think the biggest problematic statement about money that Bernie Sanders has ever made was that being a billionaire is immoral.
Yes.
Right.
Well, they shouldn't exist.
Right, shouldn't exist. Because now you have to figure out what's the cutoff amount.
Exactly.
Like
Right.
when you make more than 1 million or 2 million,
Right.
what's the cutoff?
What is it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And listen, I just want to say this. I'm an aspiring billionaire myself. I hope to God to be a billionaire one day. And I don't want to be called immoral just because I have $1 billion.
That's right. That's right. You mean you're not a billionaire?
No, not yet.
Prosperity we can build together. How about a wealth tax in America? Because with a 2-cent tax on just the top 1/10 of 1%, we have a chance to invest in universal child care for every one of our babies, to really level the playing field. Put $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities, and start closing the racial wealth gap by canceling student loan debt for 43 million Americans. We need to talk about our aspirations, our hopes. This is a moment to choose hope over fear.
Senator,
This is our moment.
Senator, thank you. We have to take a quick break. When we come back.
All right, we're going to a break.
Right. Let us hear your questions. I've got so much reaction. Okay, let's see, what are we at? 37 minutes in.
Yeah.
Taking the first break, so that was a good long chunk.
Yep.
Let me turn this down. Gosh, like where do we even start with that?
Yeah.
A lot of fireworks. Gosh,
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so let me tell you where I'm at with it.
Yeah, give me your sentiment.
I like the sensationalism. Let's get that out the way. First round, let's get the argumentation. Let's get the direct debate. Let's get the breaking of the rules. Let's get all of that out of the way. Now when we come back, we need to really hit on policy. Like we need to keep it structured on policy. I think some of the candidates are willing to push a little more this time because they were allowed to push a little bit last time.
Yes.
And they got away with it.
Yeah.
They're getting away with breaking the rules a lot already early in the debate. I don't know how the moderators are going to handle this. I've moderated literally thousands of debates in my life, okay? Once you give them that kind of freedom in the beginning, that typically is very difficult to get that back under control. So we'll see.
Right. Well, and I would argue, too, that a lot of these candidates know that they really don't have much to lose.
Yeah.
This is it. This is kind of the, again, we've said it earlier on, this is a make or break night. And so for them, breaking the rules, interrupting, they've got to be heard. They've got to make some news, make their jabs, and get in their points, because if they don't, this is it. End
Right.
of the road.
Right. And remember, the majority of people will not actually watch this debate. Many, many more people will hear what's called the echo of the debate. Those are the zingers, the one-liners, the viral moments, the news articles, the television commentary that will be done after the debate is over. And so, in a way, when they're answering these questions or making their statements, they are trying to land points that will live beyond the moment of the debate.
Right, absolutely. We said before we got started that Bernie would be taking a lot of heat, Bloomberg would be taking a lot of heat. That certainly proved to be the case.
Yes.
Them those two going at it for right off the bat, those two were going at it with
Right.
each other. Do you see any improvement with Bloomberg's performance from the last debate?
I don't know if it's a compliment because the guy did so bad last time. If he just showed up and talked,
It might be
okay,
better.
it was better than before. He is better. And I'm looking at some of the comments. Even people who are commenting are saying that he seems to be more prepared this time than before. But let me remind you that Bloomberg was scheduled to be on CNN, and he did not go. He actually rescheduled his town hall because his camp said, we need to do debate prep with our candidate. We have to skip this town hall and reschedule it for later in the week. I think that was a wise decision.
Yes.
They should have did it the first time.
And how they didn't, I will never understand. I take a slightly different take on that than you. I think he's just as sorry this time as he was.
You
last
think
time.
he's just as bad?
I really do. I think he had some comments there that I was like, what are you thinking? I mean, when Warren went after him,
Yeah.
and she made that direct, that was a hardcore. When she said, you told that woman
Yeah.
to kill her baby, to get an abortion. For him, he kind of was just like shell-shocked
Right,
a
he
little. He didn't give any.
He did the hand thing and said,
Right.
not true.
And then he kind of said, oh, well, I didn't feel good about it. Or he said something along
Yeah,
those
I
lines
caught that too. Like, you didn't feel good about what? You just said you did not
didn't
do
say
it.
it.
You didn't say it. You didn't do it.
Right.
So I'm going to go back and look at that because I noticed
Yes.
it as well. And I think it's difficult for Bloomberg politically to actually come out and attack Elizabeth Warren back. He basically has to play defense because remember, she's attacking him on his record, according to her, of him violating women to some level. Okay? So if he comes hard against her, then she can kind of say, told you so.
Yeah.
Look how he's coming at me, right? So politically, he's in a quagmire. It's a difficult circumstance, but I don't think he's artful.
Yeah.
I don't think the guy has a lot of style. Now, there are some people who are better at governing than they are at debating,
Yeah.
right? But Trump has proven, President Trump has proven, if you can't get him on a debate stage, that may be where you win or lose
Right.
the presidential election.
And if you got, we'll get back to this in 1 second, but if you got Bloomberg on a stage with President Donald Trump,
Yeah.
he'd get eaten alive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Keep sending those questions in.
I passed the Brady bill with waiting periods. I led that fight. But my friend to my right and others have, in fact, also given to the
Look at this.
gun
Pen, is
manufacturers
my audio's low?
immunity. Imagine if I stood here and said we give immunity to drug companies. We give
Now, this is on my
immunity to
page.
That is causing
So I shared the live.
on our streets.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
50 million people.
I think my volume may be low.
When Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. More than all the wars, including Vietnam, from that point on. Carnage
Check
on
1, 2,
the street,
3.
I want to tell you.
Check 1, 2, 3.
I'm coming for you, and gun manufacturers, I'm going to take you on, and I'm going to beat you. I'm the only one who's done it.
Yes, that's why we want to.
Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Volume looks okay.
I've been in the Senate when I've seen gun safety legislation introduced.
How did you share that on
get
your
a
page,
majority,
Rashad?
and
So,
it doesn't pass because
That's
I wasn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't here. I was on the original post.
Oh, okay. I see.
to the gun industry.
Here we go.
It gives a veto to the oil industry. It's going to give a veto on
Okay.
immigration. Until we're willing to dig in.
Who's winning so far, in your opinion?
Mitch McConnell
Great
is
question.
going to
Yeah.
get to the next Democratic president, and that is try to block every single thing he does. That we are willing to roll back the filibuster.
I wonder if is that all doing that on y'all's TVs at home too? It keeps cutting out on ours.
Understand this. Many people on this stage do not support rolling back the filibuster.
Thank you.
Until we're ready to do that, we can't.
Senator, I want to allow Senator Sanders to respond because you've gone after the insurance industry. You've taken on pharmaceutical companies, and you've taken on big tech. Why did you vote repeatedly to give gun manufacturers a pass?
You know, Joe has voted for terrible trade agreements.
Whoa, this is a mistake. Bernie Sanders asked, why did he vote to give gun manufacturers a break? And his answer is, Joe Biden had bad votes too.
That was a bad vote. I have today a D- voting record from the NRA. 30 years ago, I likely lost a race for the one seat for Congress in Vermont because 30 years ago I supported a ban on assault weapons. 30 years ago. Right now, my view is we need to expand background checks and the gun control movement.
But Bernie Sanders is not answering the question. The question was, why did he repeatedly give gun manufacturers a pass? What was the reason for that?
Okay.
Look at somebody acting like a billionaire.
Okay.
We've got background checks in 20 states, so you can do it. It's Congress that can't seem to do it, and I don't know why we think they're going to do it. The vice president voted for a death bill and supported the NRA, and certainly some of the Sanders have supported the NRA. But we can do this. We just got to stop.
I see Delta saying, not happy with that deflect, Bernie. Kelly says Democrats should have an F rating with the NRA, not a D.
You know this is going to bring in a lot of those comments.
Domestic abusers can't go out and get an AK-47. That bill, along with, you didn't write that bill. I wrote that bill.
I wrote the bill. The Violence Against Women Act.
Okay, you did that.
Out of the hands of people who abuse
We'll
her.
have a fact check look at
Let's look at the fact check.
goodness.
The only thing that the board.
So we may need to, Chris, my audio, I'm getting all sorts of comments that my audio's, nobody can hear me.
When you were when as a senator tried to get it covered, and
Check
Mitch
1, 2, 3.
McConnell's holding up on his desk right now, and we're going to lose the Violence Against Women Act across the board.
Okay, so if I could finish, I have the bill. Anyone can check it out.
Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check 1, 2, 3.
Another bill that's out there, universal background checks. But let me say how we win this. We've got to win in the middle of the country. And while everyone talks about winning rural areas, suburban areas, I'm the only one up here with the receipts that has actually repeatedly, while being for the assault weapon ban, won in Republican congressional districts
Check 1, 2, 3.
over and over again, including Michelle Bachmann's district. So having someone that can lead the ticket, that can bring people with her, is the way you get gun safety legislation. I look at these proposals and say, do they hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? They do not. So coming from a proud hunting state and still being able to pass this legislation is going to be the key.
That's an interesting way for her to differentiate herself.
Yeah.
I'm definitely on board with the part about sending up somebody from the middle of the country. But I want to come back to this question about the filibuster, because this is not some long ago bad vote that Bernie Sanders took. This is a current bad position that Bernie Sanders holds. And we're in South Carolina. How are we going to deliver a revolution if you won't even support a rule change? We are in the state. We are in the state where it's
They're coming after Bernie still. Yeah.
to block civil rights legislation repeatedly. No less a Senate traditional figure than Harry Reid has called for it to go. It has got to go because otherwise Washington will not deliver. I was in high school when the Columbine shooting happened. And I remember everybody in Washington saying, never again. We'll never let this happen again. And then a second school shooting generation has now been produced. Shame on us if we allow there to be a third. And also, in terms of making the case, I think it would be a bad idea for somebody to illustrate from the perspective of a veteran why the kinds of weaponry, anything remotely like what I trained on in order to go serve in a
Does it irritate you when candidates break the rules of their time engagement repeatedly? Does that irritate you? Does that make you feel like they may not be the most respectful or most courteous candidate? And does that affect how you feel about them?
This is an opportunity too for Tom Steyer to stand out from the crowd because he has an interesting perspective on the gun debate as well, and we can get into that more in the commercial break if he doesn't have an opportunity to.
People are saying that Joe Biden looks comfortable.
Because of all these disgusting and horrific mass shootings, the American people now understand that we must be aggressive on gun safety, not be dictated to by the NRA. And I am proud that I have a D- voting record from the NRA. If elected president, it will get worse than that.
All right, Mr. Steyer, please. Mr. Steyer.
It isn't a question of the American people deciding that we have too much gun violence. Everyone in America knows we have too much gun violence. The problem we have is that corporations have bought Washington, D.C. The gun manufacturers own the Senate of the United States. So even though more than 90%
Chris, is there a way to
of
hardwire
Americans
another
want
mic?
mandatory background checks
Would that
on
make
every gun
an
purchase,
improvement?
we can't get it through the Senate. So the question you
are?
have to ask yourself is, how do we change the Senate of the United States in a material way? There are two things. That's why I am...
People on the feed, and I'm getting text messages as well that his mic is booming and mine is like barely registering.
But I am also, Senator Sanders is right. We need to win a huge victory across the board. All right, Democrats need to go to the grassroots. I built one of the biggest grassroots organizations in the United States. The way to win at the grassroots is tell the truth and organize. That's what it's going to take.
That's really the first time I've heard her say your time's up.
Let's talk about...
She said it, but they've been so loud you don't hear it.
South Carolina's schools score in the bottom half of the national assessment. Black students here consistently score worse than white students. Mayor Bloomberg, a key element of your response to failing schools in New York City was a dramatic increase in public charter schools. As president, would you pursue that same strategy and seek to expand charter schools nationwide?
Let me get
I'm
this to
not
you.
sure they're appropriate every place. I can only tell you in New York, they provided parents with an
It's just
alternative to send students to them. We have the charter schools are mixed in with the non-charter public schools because our charter schools are public schools as well. They've helped each other. I saw a statistic the other day. When I came into office, 0 New York City schools were in the top 25 of the state. When I left, 23 out of 25 were from New York City. We've cut the gap between the rich and the poor. We've made an enormous difference in all of the options that parents have. I've raised teachers' salaries by 43%. I put an extra $5 billion into our school system. I value education. It is the only ways to solve the poverty problem.
I think this is one thing he didn't do very much of last time, which was tout actual accomplishments of his achievements, and I think people were seeking that. He was on the defense a lot last time. Seems like this time he's a little bit more prepared with some stats.
Big difference all by herself. And I'm going to start with my Secretary of Education. My Secretary of Education will be someone who has taught in public school. My Secretary of Education will be someone who believes in public education. And my Secretary of Education will believe that public dollars should stay in public schools. One more thing. My Secretary of Education will believe that it is time to get rid of high-stakes testing. We need to support our children. But look, we want to build a future in this country.
Governor Kemp
build
do
a
something
future
similar
by investing in our children. I've got a plan to put $800 billion new federal dollars into our public.
You know, the public school debate is really interesting because President Barack Obama actually supported limited, publicly funded charters, something that was not and still is not a popular Democratic idea, even though it was championed to some level by the former president and the former nominee of the Democratic Party who became president.
Because the psychologists tell us 0 to 4 are the most important years of human development. We are going to triple funding for low-income Title I schools because kids' education should not depend.
Rashad, you were right, though, on this. After the first commercial break, they're a lot more focused on policy, a little less with the personal jabs. I'm sure we'll see some more of that. But
and I'm sure they had a conversation during the break.
Hey, rein it in.
Rein it in. Yeah.
Earns less than $16,000 a year. We want great teachers.
Look, the best thing that we can do to support public education is to support public educators. I'm a little biased because I'm married to one, and I get an education about education every day I come home. I have seen how teachers are being expected to dip into their own pockets to furnish their classrooms. Teachers are being expected to handle the mental health challenges that their students are facing because we don't have an adequate mental health system to support kids. And now some politicians, because they aren't willing to face the need for common sense gun law, are expecting teachers to somehow transform themselves into highly trained armed guards when there's a threat to a classroom. We have to show not only with compensation, but with support for the profession overall, our regard for those who are educating our kids. And yes, that means the Secretary of Education who will support teachers. It also means investing.
Thank you.
I'm proposing an education access score that would show.
And really quickly, for the viewers who are talking about not being able to hear the television, hopefully you can have that on in your own house. This is we're not able to kind of put that audio through the Facebook Live feed. Legally, we can't.
The country is interactive, and because of our partner Twitter, this debate is no different. So, I want to put a question from Twitter to you, Senator Klobuchar. This is from Casey Pennington. How will your policies address and ensure affordable housing and education equity for minimum wage workers?
Thank you. This is one of the first times we've talked about housing, and I put forward an extensive policy. I think when I've looked at this, both in my job in local government and in the Senate, one sure way we can make sure that kids get a good start is if they have a roof over their head and a stable place to live. So the way you do that is, first of all, taking care of the Section 8 backlog of applicants. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people waiting. And
I got to say something about this Section 8 backlog. The city of Atlanta had over 1,000 of Section 8 vouchers basically expired because they could not find properties in the city of Atlanta that would accept them. Last week, the city council passed 13-2 in Atlanta, something called source of income, anti-discrimination bill for source of income, which means a landlord can no longer say no to you just because your income comes from Section 8. There's a 6-month rollout period for that. It definitely was controversial for some, but the majority of council supported it. I think the mayor will support it, but this is part of what Klobuchar is talking about.
It is important to recognize the role that the federal government played for decades.
It seems like it might be a better play for them. I don't know if you all agree, but for the moderators to choose who gets to speak next.
Yeah.
Because right now they're all raising their hand, and the first one that can jump in and keep
talking,
they
kind of allow them to finish.
Allow them
yeah.
to just keep going.
Americans and on Latinos. In fact,
oh, look at that eye roll. What else? That was like, that's going to be a, is it GIF or GIF?
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be,
yeah. It's going to be a meme, is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that, yeah.
Dramatic eye roll.
Specifically, is a piece to deal with the effects of redlining. We can no longer pretend that everything is race neutral.
Listen, I got to say this, all right, because I'm here kind of laughing inside of me because while I respect anybody who's willing to run for public office and running for president is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, we have 7 white Democratic candidates on stage because the black or the brown Democratic candidates were saying, hey, DNC, the rules are unfair to us. We are not able to continue to compete on these stages based on the rules that you're setting. Relax those rules, allow for more minority participation. They don't relax the rules, and then you have an entire debate stage of white Democratic candidates saying rules are unfair to black and brown people. I just find it ironic.
It is
all right?
Very ironic. It is. And I think there's a lot of folks who have a valid gripe. It is interesting how Bloomberg got in at the last minute on that last debate.
They changed the rules.
They changed the rules. But you
they
got
did.
People like Tulsi Gabbard who she's getting shut out of this whole process.
People are forgetting she's still actually in the presidential race.
She is. And
yeah.
you got to feel for her. She's got to look at this and say, what's
wow.
going on?
Yeah.
And why is she getting cut out? That's a valid question.
Yeah. Why do you think Tulsi is no more? Was it the Hillary Clinton effect? Because Tulsi came after Hillary Clinton, we know that. But remember, Hillary Clinton, take it how you want to take it. Hillary Clinton was the former nominee of the Democratic Party. You come after the former nominee of the Democratic Party things happen, okay? You turn some people off. And it seems as if she started not only to lose popularity, but she started to lose the media narrative as well, because there were many pundits who liked her at first who stopped talking about her in a positive way after the beef with her and Hillary Clinton.
You think that's what it was?
I think it's part of it.
It could be. I just feel like even leading up to that, she wasn't getting a fair shake. And I don't know why. I mean,
You remember that first debate? She was really impressive.
She was on fire.
That first debate, she was so impressive.
That's why when she went like that.
It was a shock. And remember, she was the most Googled person out of that first debate.
Yes.
Yep.
What do you guys think at home? Let us know.
And that's why we double the amount of money that is available for young entrepreneurs, and black entrepreneurs are as successful as any other group of people in the country. We go from $1.5 billion to $3 billion, taking $30 billion off the sidelines. That's how you create wealth. Secondly, I provide for the opportunity for first-time home buyers to be able.
They're talking more about policy this time for sure.
Yeah. We're getting some people not very happy with Elizabeth Warren.
What comment was it?
We're seeing Ian Graves. Warren acts like she's the best candidate for every single minority group. Somebody else saying Warren is rude by breaking in.
You cannot find a place to live. And thirdly, I make sure that with regard to housing, we allow people, look, right now if you live in a black neighborhood and you have the same exact house as the guy across the street in the white neighborhood has, your house is valued significantly less than the white. The same exact house. We've got to deal with the institutional racism.
Vice President, Mr. Vice President.
I know how you cut me off all the time.
Had a little tremble in the chin, and he went for it.
The United States has a gigantic subtext of race. Yes. We're talking about education. We're talking about criminal justice. We're talking about housing.
Now, some of you may be wondering, why is it that this debate has focused so much on race relations in America? You have not heard this much debate about the racial undertone of this country in any Democratic debate. So why is it happening tonight? It's happening tonight because, number one, they're in South Carolina. Number two, South Carolina has the highest participation of African Americans in their primary, okay? So they are talking about the issue of systematic racism.
But it's interesting to me because, real quickly, we can talk more about this in the commercial break, that the one reason why all these candidates are saying Bernie Sanders should not be the nominee is because they're saying a socialist cannot beat Donald Trump. Yet they touched on that for just briefly at the beginning of the debate. They haven't really gone at him yet at some of the statements he made recently with Anderson Cooper on CNN regarding Fidel Castro, some of these other comments.
They jabbed him. They jabbed him. They did not knock him out on it.
Knock him out.
Yeah.
I'd like to change topics and ask you, rural areas have populations who are older, sicker, and poorer than non-rural communities, and they have to travel farther to get medical help when they need it. Expanding coverage is going to be useless if there are no providers to go to. So how would you ensure that there is available health care in rural areas?
People aren't always aware, I know you are in South Carolina, about how much poverty there is, particularly child poverty in rural areas. So the answer is one size doesn't fit all. And one of the ways you do this, right now we have something called critical access hospitals. So they're designated for rural areas. And actually I am leading the lead Democrat on a bill to extend that, to have other types of hospitals like emergency rooms in rural areas be covered. The other issue is we don't have enough personnel. And so that's where we get to this education plan. And I don't agree with some of my colleagues here about putting hard-earned taxpayer money into rich kids going to college. What I think we need to do instead is look at what our needs are in our economy. We're going to have 1 million openings for home health care workers, particularly in rural areas that we don't know how to fill. We're going to have over 100,000 openings for nursing assistants. We're not going to have a shortage of sports marketing degrees. We're going to have a shortage of plumbers and nurses. So putting incentives in place with how we do loan payback, making 1- and 2-year degrees free, and then of course creating loan payback programs that people will go, especially medical students, into rural areas. Final thing is comprehensive immigration reform. I have passed a bill that allows doctors from other countries that study in our medical schools
I do find it interesting. Amy Klobuchar seems to be really the only one so far that has kind of had taken the opportunity to calmly state what she would do, her policy. All the others are kind of just seem very
she's doing herself. They're high strung, they're on the edge, and she's doing herself a lot of favors tonight.
Yes.
And we're seeing them in particular in states where Medicaid was not expanded, something that is hurting black and poor white families and is largely the result of racial voter suppression.
Okay, so let me say something about the statement he just made. He said it's hurting black families and poor white families. That is an untrue statement, and it goes to some of the issues that African Americans have with Democratic or liberal Democratic candidates. Mayor Pete, if I could talk to Mayor Pete, I would say, Mayor Pete, it hurts poor black families and it hurts poor white families. Okay, please understand that black is not a condition of economics.
Right.
So when you say it hurts black families and it hurts poor white families, you're basically assuming that all black families are poor. Okay, that is something that we pick up on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that, that's a fair point.
Working with Congressman Jim Clyburn, South Carolina, that we increase funding for the Community Health Center program by $11 billion as part of the Affordable Care Act, which now provides for 9 million Americans access to primary health care, dental care, mental health counseling, and low-cost prescription drugs. In that bill, we also put $2 billion into a program which would provide debt forgiveness for doctors, nurses, dentists. We have a major dental affordable crisis in this country, to make sure that they are practicing in underserved areas. The advantage of a Medicare for all health care program, because it's not driven by profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies.
There are some folks feeling Steyer tonight, more so.
Feeling Steyer?
Yeah. Cozy says, Steyer is speaking my language. Delta says, I like Klobuchar's answer about forgiving loan debt to workers in rural areas.
Okay.
Picking up people.
You ban trans fats from restaurants, and you try to do the same with large sugary drinks. So if you become president, will you push those policies on the national level as well?
Well,
great question.
What's right for New York City isn't necessarily right for all the other cities. Otherwise, you'd have a naked cowboy in every city. So let's get serious here. But I do think it's the government's job to have good science and to explain to people what science says, how to take care of themselves and extend their lives.
That's an interesting point.
We are a country.
People might argue I know what my body needs and I don't need you to tell me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We did ban smoking in New York City in public places, restaurants, offices, and that sort of thing. And it has spread across America, across Europe, across Latin America, even into places in the Middle East and into the Far East. It has saved an enormous number of lives. So it just goes to show, if you have good public health, then you can do things. And one of the great problems today, you read about the virus. What's really happening here is the president fired the pandemic specialists in this country 2 years ago. So there's nobody here to figure out what the hell we should be doing. And defunded.
Okay.
So we don't have the organization we need. This is a very serious thing. As you see, the stock market's falling apart because people are really worried, and they should be. We don't have anybody to respond.
We're going to talk about that in our next segment. Before I leave you, are New Yorkers living longer?
Seems to me we've got about 20 government agencies that are all working on health and human services and all of those types of agencies. So to say that we don't have anybody addressing this is not accurate.
William says, Bloomberg is falling short with these jokes.
Clown show.
We have a thing in the Defense Department called DARPA, Special Operation thing, to find out all the things we have to deal with to make us safer. They came up with the internet. They came up with the whole idea of stealth technology. I'm going to do the same thing at the National Institute of Health. We're going to focus.
Jimmy Ray Walton saying, still doesn't seem like Mayor Pete is able to relate to black voters. That was to your point earlier.
Yeah.
And we're going to make that investment because no one else is willing to make that investment. We can, in fact, find cures if we make the investment. And we can get that done. The American people support it. Even Republicans will support it. We have to focus on extending life, saving life, and making people, put them in a position to be able to live longer and more securely.
I know it's tough to rein in these candidates, and once they are on their podium and able to, in the middle of their answer, they can kind of take it in different directions. But it seems to me they should almost have a block dedicated to one topic. So one block is dedicated to healthcare. One block is dedicated.
That's usually how it's done.
Yeah, because it's just very sporadic
right
now. They're talking about so many different things and hodgepodging around.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of just stay focused on what they're trying to say.
Remember the early debates? It was very compartmentalized. Some debates even had their own theme.
Yes.
Other debates had 2 or 3 themes, and they broke it off in sections.
Yeah.
The last few debates, no theme, no section. It's just, it seems like a free-for-all.
It does. Do you guys agree at home? Is this hard for you to kind of just follow? They're kind of all over the map, in my opinion. But
Do you like the themes better, the structure better, or do you like it the way it is now?
Because of things like opioids and the like. And that's why one of the first plans I put out was for treatment. Because if you want to make the criminal justice system work, you don't want to have repeat customers, and you want to help people to get off of drugs. And the way you do that is with drug courts. The way you do that, by the way, is with my proposal for a clemency board in the White House, so that you don't have a president that pell-mell gives pardons to his buddies and to white-collar offenders, but that instead you have a set process that you use that's fair and is outside of the Justice Department and while giving their advice.
All right, thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Mayor Bloomberg, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because you have called marijuana another addictive drug that we've never done research on.
Look, the first thing you do is we should not make this a criminal.
I don't know if that's just happening to our TV or if that's happening to you guys at home too.
I think it's just us.
Number 2, we're not going to take it away from states that have already done it. But number 3, you should listen to the scientists and the doctors. They say go very slowly. They haven't done enough research, and the evidence so far is worrisome before we get all our kids, particularly kids in their late teens, boys even more than girls, with this maybe damaging their brains.
I want to talk about the marijuana debate when we go to our first break, okay? Because Bloomberg is wrong on the science and he's wrong on the social impact, and I want to talk about that.
Well, according to Bloomberg, he has all the science and knows all the science that the rest of us don't. So, Rashad, I don't know.
That is not only wicked, it is racist, got more people in jail than any other country on earth, including China. One of the reasons for that is a horrific war on drugs. So I do believe that on day 1, we will change the Federal Controlled Substance Act, which, if you can believe it, now equates heroin with marijuana. That's insane. We're going to take marijuana out of that and effectively legalize marijuana.
Jimmy's saying, I prefer the town halls, actually, wondering who drops out after Super Tuesday. I think almost who drops out after South Carolina.
Yeah.
We may not need to wait until Super Tuesday to see some of these folks drop out.
If Biden does poorly in South Carolina, he will, I predict he will drop out of the race, okay?
He won't wait till Super Tuesday.
He may wait to Super Tuesday, but I think Super Tuesday will be even more embarrassing if he does poorly in South Carolina.
We heard the comment. I don't know if you guys heard that at home. I'm sure you did, Rashad, just recently. He made another gaffe, if that's what you want to call it, saying he was running for Senate.
He said he was a candidate for U.S. Senate, right. Obviously newsworthy because people are questioning his mental aptitude, right? Let's be very honest. Vice President Joe Biden has lost a couple of steps. It's clear, okay?
It's clear.
All right, now he's always made gaffes, but he's never forgotten what he's running for, right? That's the first time we've heard that. Let me talk about Bloomberg's answer on marijuana, okay?
Let's do it.
All right. It's really a criminalization issue at its core because we have over-criminalized individuals who have utilized marijuana. But let's look at the actual science of it, right? Here's the science. The science says, even the American Cancer Society, they say, hey, not bad, can actually have medicinal quality, medicinal use. There are a lot of drugs that are completely legal that are way more harmful according to science, such as Ritalin, codeine, Percocet, like all of these things, right? Now, let's go beyond that to the argument he made about children getting their hands on marijuana. We got to stop that argument. That's madness. And let me tell you why. It is easier right now for a 12-year-old kid to go over to West End Atlanta right now and get a dime bag of marijuana. It's easier for that kid to get a dime bag of marijuana right now than it is for that kid to get a 6-pack of beer. You know why that kid will have trouble getting that 6-pack of beer? Because alcohol is now regulated. Meaning if you dispense alcohol, you have to be licensed to do so. And if you sell it to someone underage, you could lose your ability to function as an entrepreneur in that community, right? The drug dealer has no such regulation. The drug dealer sells indiscriminately to anyone who says, I got the money, give me the product. Now, if you regulate the industry, you bring it out of darkness, the drug dealer dries up first. There's no need for the drug dealer. The drug dealer has no market. Everyone who now has a marijuana dispensary is regulated. There are rules who they can actually do business with. And so now that 12-year-old kid can't find a drug dealer, and a dispensary won't sell marijuana to their 12-year-old kid. We've already seen this happen in Colorado and other places where you have not increased minors on marijuana, you have decreased minors on marijuana. That's based on their own stats. And why is that? Because they can't find people selling the product like they used to.
Well, and that is certainly one side of it. I mean, you talk about deregulation on a federal level. I mean, obviously we've got states doing that in their own regard. But when you talk about criminal justice reform and that side of this issue, you know, when I sat down with Tom Steyer and did a one-on-one interview with him, I asked him at the very end of the interview, what is one nice thing you can say about President Donald Trump? And he said criminal justice reform. And so that's a fair point. And you know, that is another, I think, topic where a lot of these candidates can differentiate themselves from one another.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, so you've got Tom Steyer giving him props for that. And you talk, like, you know, Pete Buttigieg coming out recently in an interview and saying he would deregulate everything, from meth to hair. I mean, everything.
Right,
so
which I think is quite insane. Though
it's insane.
Yeah, so those drugs will rip people apart. Okay, I've seen that firsthand. Marijuana for adult users, it is what it is. All right, I'm not trying to besmirch people who smoke marijuana. Drug addiction is a serious issue. I think if you do some massive deregulation of every single thing on the planet that's a controlled substance, then you have a bigger problem than a solution. But we'll see how Mayor Pete fares moving forward. I think it's one of those policies that's kind of out of touch with the general American.
I think so.
Right?
Absolutely.
The majority of Democrats aren't even for that.
No, you say that and you just it catches your attention and you just kind of say, where is that coming
from? And the question becomes why?
Why?
Yeah.
A lot of people are actually chiming in on this on Facebook. I think this is an issue that a lot of people care about. And you guys, if you're watching and you have an opinion, let us know.
Let us know. Even if you disagree with me, let me know.
Do you think this is something that Georgia should entertain? You know, Rashad makes a fair point. A lot of people say yes, but a lot of people on the flip side of that, you go to Colorado, you visit some of these states, and there's a lot of folks who argue against it, who say DUIs are up and all of these issues are up as well. And you say homelessness is up and things like, well, whether or not they're correlated, you know, that's a bigger debate. But, you know, there's points on both sides. Let us know what you guys think at home, whether that should be something that we deregulate. And we'll see if they touch on that again. We're back.
Each of you is campaigning for the role as Commander-in-Chief. Will you command 1.3 million U.S. troops and be responsible for protecting America's national security? There are also 53,000 here in South Carolina. You said, Senator Warren, you said you wanted to
I think you still have the feed for us. I got the one for my group.
I think, yeah, I've got one of each.
Okay.
How does that protect America's
Two different threads of conversation.
The president's first job is to keep America safe. And an important part of that is to have a strong military. All three of my brothers served in the military, and I understand how much the military sacrifices, how much their families sacrifices, how much they are willing to put on the line. That means that
yeah, so I'm sharing live on my group page.
Use our military to solve problems that cannot be solved militarily. We are not
Ryan. Hello, Leighton.
What we need to do is we need to use all of the tools in our toolbox.
Ryan Hillard, you live in Colorado. Let us know how things are there for you.
Those are our eyes and ears on the
Since they've
ground.
deregulated marijuana there.
Front lines in diplomacy. We need a strong economy and to work worldwide on that economy.
Wilford says so far they haven't put a dent into Bernie. He may even be helping himself tonight. I agree. They're not coming after Bernie like he is the front runner he is.
See, and I think Bernie's hurting himself. I don't like his energy. He just seems very.
It's because he's in the middle.
Maybe
he doesn't know what
arms.
to do. Right.
It's
He doesn't.
just the arms.
Right. He can't talk without his arms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's just the energy, and you just want to feel a confident, strong, powerful presence from the person who's going to be the commander-in-chief, not somebody who's flailing their arms around, being angry and defensive. And what's your sense? That's the sense I've gotten so far with Bernie. But to be fair, he's also gotten a brunt of the attacks, too.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
tough.
when Bloomberg was attacked, he didn't do that. Bloomberg seemed frustrated, but the guy has been even keeled
Yes.
throughout all of it so far.
After 9/11, I don't know what's going to teach us what to do. We have to do something, and I think the budget that one of the things that I've seen recently convinced me that the military today is better prepared than they've been in an awful long time, and that the monies they are spending on the war weapons we need for the next war and not for the last, a common mistake that they're not making now. They're doing a good job.
Mayor Buttigieg, I'd like to go to you as the only veteran on stage. Can you weigh in on this?
Well, the first time I ever set foot in South Carolina, it was stepping off the bus that brought me to combat training near Fort Jackson. And that was to get ready to go to Afghanistan, where I saw that one of the things that kept me safe, just as sure as my body armor, was the fact that the flag on my shoulder represented a country that was known to keep its word. Our allies and our adversaries knew it. The president has torn that to shreds. And so the first thing we've got to do is restore the credibility of the United States. Second thing we got to do
I missed that, what he said
make
there.
sure that we not only have the intelligence capabilities, and I guess I disagree with the mayor, I don't think we need to have ground troops
Hi, Robert.
anywhere terrorists can gather, because terrorists can gather anywhere in the world. But we do need intelligence capabilities and specialists on the ground. But what good is that if you have a president who won't listen to them? Right now, some of the biggest threats that we face are not only things like counterterrorism, but issues like global health security and the coronavirus that rely on the ability to listen to scientists, listen to your own intelligence, and coordinate with an international community that this president has alienated because his idea of a security strategy
I know
is a
it
big
goes
wall.
fast, but a minute 15 is really a long time. So we'd ask respectfully if you would all please try to keep to the time. Senator Klobuchar, good idea, right, Mr. Vice President? Senator Klobuchar, today, as we were coming over here today, I promise, Mr. Vice President, we are going to get to you today. I promise.
You promised me that, but you haven't done it yet.
I've never.
I've got a couple of Republicans chiming in too. If you guys are watching at home, let us know what you think if you are a Republican. What are you guys thinking about watching these candidates and how the strength of their argument? Let us know.
There have been no deaths, but the CDC says this. It's not a matter of if the virus will spread here, but when. The question to you is this. Would you close the borders to Americans who have been exposed to the coronavirus in order to prevent an outbreak here in this country?
Well, what we have to do is make sure that we have treatment for those Americans and that they are in a quarantine situation. We don't want to expose people, but we want to give them help. And I would agree when Mayor Bloomberg said that this president has not invested like he should have in his budget. He tried to cut back on the CDC. He tried to cut back on the international organization that would coordinate with the rest of the world. He hasn't yet really addressed the nation on this topic. I would do all of that. But I want to take this out of politics right now and talk to the American people because this is so serious. I'm not going to give my website right now. I'm going to give the CDC's website, which is cdc.gov, so that people keep checking in and they follow the rules and they realize what they have to do if they feel sick and they call their healthcare provider. Because many doctors are saying
It's a fair point, but I think that reality is nobody really knows what we're dealing with.
I think the answers
They're all trying to figure it out.
I would better coordinate throughout my presidency to be ready for the next pandemic and to prepare for this one. I would have better relations with our allies. And I would support, because I know the vaccine is out there in the head of some kid right now in school in Columbia, South Carolina, or Houston, Texas, and it's investing in education. So we are ready to lead again in the world.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, we reached a turning point today with the CDC, warning schools that they must prepare, that they might have to close. Members of the Trump administration saying we don't have enough medical masks if necessary. What would you do?
What we did with Ebola, I was part of making sure that pandemic did not get to the United States, saved millions of lives. And what we did, we set up, I helped set up that office in the presidency, in the president's office on diseases that are pandemic diseases. We increased the budget of the CDC. We increased the NIH budget. We should have, our president today, and he's wiped all that out. We did it. We stopped it. And the second thing I point out to you is that what I would do immediately is restore the funding. He cut the funding for CDC. He tried to cut the funding for NIH. He cut the funding for the entire effort. And here's the deal. I would be on the phone with China and making it clear. We are going to need to be in your country. You have to be open.
Let me ask you this. The way Biden delivers by kind of yelling and pointing his finger, is that effective or not effective?
Great question.
Internationally, with any of these world leaders, I'm the only one that has.
Senator Sanders.
Is it just me? This is. I almost, when I'm watching Biden, it almost looks like he's on the verge of crying.
It's a different Biden. Let's put it like that.
Next time he talks.
Okay, yeah.
Look at him. I saw at one point, I think I even said it. His chin would seem to be quivering.
I think he's angry because he has alluded to it multiple times. He's not getting the same opportunity to speak as other candidates because they are more willing to break the rules than he is. This is all I can say to the former vice president. Listen, welcome to a 2020 presidential election.
Yeah, it's a different animal.
It's a different animal.
And expand the World Health Organization. Obviously, we have to make sure.
Tiffany says he's shaking.
Yeah, I noticed that too. A very different Biden.
Senator, we're going to stay on the topic of foreign affairs. Margaret Brennan.
Thank you, Nora. Mayor Bloomberg, you've said that President Xi
I see, John, you got jokes, John. John said, I heard Joe was running for the Senate. Is this true?
He's on the wrong stage. Exactly.
You got jokes, man. Okay.
No, I would not.
That was a good one.
I think the Chinese government has not been open. Their press, the freedom of press does not exist there. Their human rights record is abominable, and we should make a fuss, which we've been doing, I suppose. But we make no mistake about it. We have to deal with China if we're ever going to solve the climate crisis. We have to deal with them because our economies are inextricably linked. We would not be able to sell or buy the products that we need. And in terms of whether he's a dictator, he does serve at the behest of the Politburo, their group of people. But there's no question he has an enormous amount of power. But he does play to his constituency. You can negotiate with him. That's exactly what we have to do. Make it seem that it's in his interest and it's his people's interest to do what we want to do.
You could take him out of that and put President Trump in, and they'd be saying pretty much the same thing.
At this point, right, the policy on China is very similar.
Yep.
Are reciprocal and go equally in both directions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice President Biden, same question to you. Would you allow Chinese firms to build critical U.S. infrastructure?
No, I would not. I spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader had by the time we left office. This is a guy who doesn't have a democratic with a small d bone in his body. This is a guy who is a thug who, in fact, has 1 million Uyghurs in reconstruction camps, meaning concentration camps. This is a guy who you see what's happening right now in Hong Kong.
And remember, guys, you all can share the live and invite your friends onto this discussion so we can all have this discussion together.
Yeah.
All right. And the commercial breaks, we really break it down.
That's right. Stay with us. Yeah.
They are. When in fact they said they're going to set up a no-fly zone. that you can't fly through our zone. He said, what do you expect me to do when I was over there? I said, we're going to fly right through it. We flew B-1 bombers through it. We got to make it clear. They must play by the rules. Period, period, period.
Senator Warren, same question.
I mean, Joe Biden is looking better than he has looked before, but it still is like, I think people kind of miss the soft Joe Biden, right?
Maybe.
He has not found his debate footing yet.
He's done.
We'll see. South Carolina will tell the tale.
I think South Carolina can extend the lifeline a little bit, but
Jimmy says Bloomberg's talking reality here.
yeah.
Some people think that Bloomberg is more practical. The only reason he's receiving the amount of popularity he has gotten in this very short amount of time is because Bloomberg does not represent an extreme. He is a moderate in every sense of the word.
We have another couple weeks left to go. We're doing it as fast as we can. We've complied with every single requirement for disclosure. And when
Back to the NDAs.
We had our tax returns out 12
Tax
years
returns.
in a row, and we will do that in the White House.
So Sean Gables in the discussion says, so curious, which candidate is having a breakout moment or is another debate needed?
Ooh, girl, you got some time.
Yeah, there's no breakout moment here, buddy. None.
You know that's Sean.
Yeah, Sean, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
No breakout moment, Sean. Not yet.
Within the borders of the United States. We're talking about climate change, which is a global problem that
Now, this is his big issue, climate change.
U.S. leadership for countries around the world. In fact, Mr. Trump's policy of us going it alone, of America first, of having no values, no allies, and no strategy is disastrous for us.
It's a bit of an overstatement.
Right now, in terms of our safety of our citizens, is climate, and it's time for us to deal with it that way. Every single foreign policy issue is about American leadership and coalition.
New topic, Senator Sanders.
Can I say one word on-
It's in the same theme, sir. You've praised the Chinese Communist Party for
I agree,
lifting more
Tiffany.
people out of extreme poverty than any other country.
JD.
You also have a track record of expressing sympathy for socialist governments in Cuba and
Here we
in
go.
Nicaragua. Can Americans trust that a
Hour into
democratic
the debate.
socialist president will not give authoritarians a free pass?
I have opposed authoritarianism all over the world, and I was really amazed at what Mayor Bloomberg just said a moment ago. He said that the Chinese government is responsive to the Politburo. But who the hell is the Politburo responsive to? Who elects the Politburo? You got a real dictatorship there? Of course you have a dictatorship in Cuba. What I said is what Barack Obama said in terms of Cuba. That Cuba made progress on education. Yes, I think. Really? Really?
Yes, because there's no
programs are bad. What Barack Obama said is they made great progress on education and healthcare. That was Barack Obama. Occasionally, it might be a good idea to be honest about American foreign policy, and that includes the fact that America has opened.
See, at this point, I would actually go to Joe Biden and see if
What was the
stance of his administration at that time.
The Chinese or the Cubans do something good.
A lot of people are saying that when he made that comment about Fidel Castro, he lost Florida, potentially if he ever had it.
A lot of people are saying he lost Florida because of that. Okay, they went to Biden.
Not in any way suggest that there was anything positive about the Cuban government. He acknowledged that they did increase life expectancy, but he went on and condemned the dictatorship. He went on and condemned the people.
So now this is interesting. You have Vice President Biden, who is defending President Barack Obama.
Yes.
And remember, with Democrats, former President Obama is still around 85%, at an 85% popularity rate. Oh, wait a minute. Biden kind of invaded their personal space right there with that point.
I have condemned authoritarianism, whether it is the people in Saudi Arabia that the United States government has loved for years, Cuba, Nicaragua. Authoritarianism of any stripe is bad. But that is different than saying that governments occasionally do things that are good. Look at
That's a tough sell, buddy. You might want to just drop.
I think it was just unwise for him to say that at that time.
Is to actually win the presidency. And I am not looking forward to a scenario where it comes down to Donald Trump with his nostalgia for the social order of the 1950s and Bernie Sanders with a nostalgia for the revolutionary politics of the 1960s. This is not about what coups were happening in the 1970s or 80s. This is about the future. This is about
Sanders is visibly not happy about that comment.
to survive or succeed, and we're certainly not going to win by reliving the Cold War. And we're not going to win these critical House and Senate races if people in those races have
Tiffany says, I think Mayor Pete has been breaking out tonight. I like him. Do you think this is a breakout night for Mayor Pete?
We've got to be a lot smarter about this. Let's be clear.
Come on, Austin. Bernie doesn't have a corner man. There's nobody that can throw in the towel for Bernie Sanders. No.
A radical communist idea. Do we think raising the minimum wage to a living wage? Do we think building the billions of units of affordable housing that we need? Do we think raising taxes on billionaires is a radical idea? Do you think criminal justice reform is a radical idea? The things you just named are immigration reform. The truth is, the American people
Okay, somebody's mic needs to get cut, right?
Step in. They need a belt.
Right.
Crowd's getting
nightmare is having
feisty.
someone that the people in the middle who are tired of the insults and the extremes in our politics have someone to vote for. And I was going to comment on Cuba policy because I actually lead the bill to lift the embargo. I went with Barack Obama when he went to Cuba, and I've seen firsthand how the Cuban people are way in front of their leaders. They like America. They want to be entrepreneurs. And the way
Lee says Bernie Sanders is losing it. Do you agree?
the socialist regime is by opening up Cuba and starting to do business with them. But to get at what we were just talking about, I just think we have a huge choice. Super Tuesday states, 1/3 of America will vote. Do you want to have someone in charge of this ticket? Could I finish, Margaret? Do you want to have someone in charge of this ticket who wants to put forward $60 trillion in spending, 3 times the American economy? I don't think we do. I think that we can get all those bold progressive things done without having someone that is so alienating that we're going to turn off the voters that we need to bring with us. You have to allow the senator to respond.
Respond to the question of
Amy
Senator
used the
Sanders.
word alienating. Hey, Amy.
Yes.
My favorite bill.
He said, hey, Amy. Okay.
Hey, Rashad.
Hey. Hey, Carolyn, how are you? This is funny.
Hey.
The way we are going to beat Trump, which is what everybody up here wants, is we need a campaign of energy and excitement. We need to have the largest voter turnout in the history of the United States. We need to bring working people back into the Democratic Party. We need to get young people voting in a way they have never done before. That is what our campaign is about.
Bill Whitaker has the floor.
Vice President Biden, the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report concluded Russia interfered in our last presidential election, and the Obama administration failed to respond forcefully. U.S. intelligence says Russia's at it again. If it is proven that Russia has interfered in the 2020 elections, would you, as president, launch a retaliatory cyber attack?
I would make them pay for it, and I make them pay for it economically. They are engaged now, as I speak, in interfering in our election. They were engaged, and when in fact we were the last election in 2016 against Hillary, they were. There's no question. This man stood before the whole world, turned to the Russian leader, and said, why in God's name would this man ever interfere in our elections? Give me a break. 17 intelligence agencies said he did. When we got the information, we
Now
went
he's
to the committee
conflating
in the Senate that's responsible
collusion
for knowing these
with
issues
Russia,
and
which has
doing
been
it.
debunked,
We went to Mitch
with
McConnell
meddling
and said,
in elections. So they're two separate issues.
what is happening here?
Yeah, but I don't think he's talking about collusion. I do think they're still on interference, because the question was, if it's proven they did interfere in the 2020 election, right?
Right.
What are you going to do?
Right. That was the question. And
Yeah.
then he pivoted to talking about he, Donald Trump.
And so, look, we in fact should be imposing sanctions on Russia now for their interference. Mr. Steyer.
But that doesn't say cyber attack. He asked about a cyber attack against the Russian government.
It's cyber warfare. What we're having is an attack on a hostile foreign power on our democracy right now. The question you have to ask is, where's the commander-in-chief? And let me say this. We don't have one. This isn't news. When Vice President
He
Biden
said, "We don't have one."
He did stand next to Vladimir Putin. There was a hostile foreign attack on our election last time, and the president sided with the hostile foreign power. That's why I started need to impeach. That's what we have to do. We have to oppose a president who sides with a hostile foreign power that commits cyber warfare against the United States of America. That's where we are. Where are all these patriotic Republicans who wave the flag, but when we're actually under attack, they side with our enemies? It's outrageous. That's why he should have been impeached.
I think this is the best debate performance Steyer has ever had so far.
He's showing up. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer.
He's got his main issues, though. I think that one is a losing issue. I don't, in my opinion. He was talking about impeachment before President Trump even stepped foot on that elevator.
I think Steyer coming into the race was a one-topic candidate. He was all about the environment and nothing else. He has definitely become a spectrum candidate over time.
What would you say to American Jews who might be concerned you're not, from their perspective, supportive enough of Israel? Specifically, sir, would you move the U.S. Embassy back to Tel Aviv?
Let me just, the answer is, it's something that we would take into consideration.
Which would,
But here, excuse me, but here is the point. I am very proud of being Jewish. I actually lived in Israel for some months. But what I happen to believe is that right now, sadly, tragically, in Israel, through Bibi Netanyahu, you have a reactionary racist who is now running that country. And I happen to believe,
It's an interesting question from Sean.
I see. I'm responding now. March 24th, Democratic primary elections right here in Georgia. When will candidates actually come? You're going to see candidates starting to come here first week in March, second week in March. They're going to come strong, not just to talk about vote for me, I'll set you free, but to also raise money. They are coming here to raise money. This is a major contributor, financial contributor to Democratic politics at large from the state of Georgia. So they'll be here raising money and shaking hands and going on TV.
In Israel and the Palestinians, it's only gone on for 40, 50 years. Number one, you can't move the...
Somebody on Twitter is saying Bloomberg's most effective points in this debate are being made in the ads that he's running during its commercial breaks.
It's a very good point.
That's a pretty good point.
Yeah.
The problem here is you have two groups of people, both of who think God gave them the same piece of land. And the answer is to obviously split it up.
We'll talk about is Georgia swing state. Let's talk about that during the next break. Now, let me ask y'all, is Georgia a swing state, a bona fide swing state? And listen, don't come to me with, oh, I just hope and I think, no, Is Georgia, in your opinion, a bona fide swing state now?
We have to start with the values and what has to be protected here. Israelis have a right to security, and the Palestinians have a right to be treated with dignity and to have self-determination. That is a two-state solution. But it's not up to us to determine what the terms of a two-state solution are. We want to be a good ally to everyone in the region. The best way to do that is to encourage the parties to get to the negotiating table themselves. Donald Trump's big mistake is he keeps putting a thumb on the scale on just one side, and that moves the parties further away from working out their own solution here. We need to be an ally by supporting them to come to negotiate, to find a lasting.
Sean says no. BB says no. Jimmy says, I hope Bloomberg selects Stacey Abrams. We've talked about this on my radio show, that maybe a potential ticket is a Bloomberg Abrams Democratic ticket. Would that ticket make a difference to you?
Has engaged in
wants to know what determines
Senator Klobuchar, if you were commander.
A swing state basically means that the state can go either for the Democratic nominee for president or the Republican nominee for president. It could swing either way. So literally it means swing. Typically, when a state is a bona fide swing state, it has demonstrated an ability in the political marketplace to go one way or the other, depending on the candidate only.
There's no way to do it, and as you can see, North Korea is emboldened. They're still launching missiles. They've promised a Christmas surprise that thankfully never happened, and he has not been able to advance.
Marco Rubio chiming in on Twitter to recap tonight's Democratic debate. If they are elected, you will get government-controlled internet, energy, schools, and health care. And as a bonus, reefer for everyone.
We should be working.
He got jokes too.
He got jokes too.
Yeah, he got jokes too.
Not only to stand up for the protection of our elections and call Vladimir Putin out for what he is, the ruthless dictator that takes down planes, that poisons dissidents, but that also, at the same time, we have to acknowledge that we should be renegotiating the New START Treaty and the other arms negotiations that must happen. This president just likes to do tweets at 4 a.m. in his bathrobe, gets out there and doesn't achieve the results we need. I would meet with him, but I would do it with our allies. I would have clear deliverables, and I would achieve those deliverables.
Mr. Vice President, how would you deal with North Korea?
You don't negotiate with a dictator, give him legitimacy without any notion whether he is going to do anything at all. You don't do that. Look what happened. He gave this dictator, he's a thug, legitimacy. We've weakened the sanctions.
And did the Obama administration not do that with Cuba that we just got done hearing about?
And I think the argument back from the Obama administration would be that the sanctions didn't work. It only created a separation between their country and America. And as far as the threat that was there during that time, that threat no longer existed against the American government.
But
Kim Jong-un. Oh, they didn't like it. Oh, right. Oh, he is.
He is a dictator. Full stop. And he's saying you don't sit down and talk with a dictator. And that's contradictory to what he's saying.
But he said without getting something from them. Right. Now, I can argue that you didn't get a whole lot from Cuba at whatsoever. It was just a lot of time. If North Korea is a different country 40 years from now, the reason for our stance against the dictator may no longer exist. And so I could make that argument only 40 years from now. Oh, Joe. That statement. Joe Biden just said, gentlemen do not get treated very well up here. And he meant it. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a tongue-in-cheek remark. Joe needs to realize who he is, what era he's running for president in. It is 2020, all right?
What would you do as president?
He just said it is unfair to men on the debate stage.
And stop the killing of innocent civilians.
First of all, I stand with the people of Idlib who are being targeted as
Tanya, let's definitely chat about that in the commercial break.
What did Tanya say?
That's a really good point. Should old people just accept that their horrible health care that we're getting, my prescription prices have increased, not happy?
Yeah.
I'm talking about health, but the idea of health care and seniors, I think that's really important. And if you're talking about Medicare for all, that opens up a huge can of worms, and maybe we could chat about that once we get
Right.
to
And remember, for the first time, health care, the cost of health care is increasing faster than the increasing wages. Increasing wages is a good thing, but you don't feel those increasing wages if your cost of health care outpaces the amount of money that you're making.
He asked the question of whether health care for everybody is a radical idea. And it's not, which is why I'm for it. Very much in a different way, though. What is a radical idea is completely eliminating all private insurance. And part of how you know it is that no industrialized country has gone that far. He and I both like to talk about Denmark, for example. But even in Denmark, they have not abolished the possibility of private insurance. So this is an idea that goes further than what is acceptable in Denmark, the country.
Somebody's saying, I'd love to hear Bloomberg's inner dialogue on Warren. That's funny. I can't even imagine.
What would you do to stop the mass murder in Idlib, Syria?
Look, I think that what we've got to do is we have to provide humanitarian humanitarian relief. We need to work with our allies on this, but this is not a moment for military intervention. We have got to use our military only when we see a military problem that can be solved militarily. We cannot send our military in unless we have a plan to get them out. So for me, this is about working with our allies. It is about standing with the people who are under enormous pressure right now. This is recognizing what Donald Trump has put us in a terrible box around the world. But the solution is not to use our military.
So I hear you, Billy. Billy Holloway from the Billy Holloway Show says, my health insurance went up and I only got a 2% raise, which means you don't really feel that raise, right?
I'll let you enjoy that. We're going to ask you when we come back from the break about the words you live by. We're going to give you a couple minutes to gather your thoughts.
Uh-oh, the words you live by. So they're going to do another segment of this debate, talk about the words you live by. Obviously, that will mean, here's what you said in the past. Do you stand by those words? Here's what I would love for them to do. All right. If you and I were doing this debate, we would have a monitor. We would have a big screen.
A playback.
That's right. Damn it, we'll just play it back. I won't even have to say it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you quote or just re-quote something that they've said, they always have this tendency to say, oh, I didn't say it like that. Yeah. You're taking it out of context.
Right.
What I meant was, if you were there, well, if we see it in context, I don't think they have that. Like, you really have to deal with what you said.
Right. No, absolutely. That will be an interesting segment to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
But touching really quickly, a lot of people on here were talking about the healthcare angle of that. I think several things that Bernie has to overcome if he's going to end up being the nominee. One is obviously Medicare for all. And his version, and that's what Mayor Pete was just arguing, is that Bernie's version of Medicare for all is that you'd essentially lose all of your private solutions. And so especially when you're talking about the baby boomers and you're talking about seniors, they have Medicare, but they have a lot of supplements that go with that. You have to have those supplements because if you've got a chronic illness, if you've got cancer, if you've got dementia, if you need long-term health care, if you need any of those things, Medicare isn't going to do jack what.
Yeah.
These have to have the supplement. If he doesn't have those voters, if he doesn't have those seniors, that's a huge problem.
And these are policies I don't like. You know what? I don't like these kinds of policies because they are disconnected from the general sentiment of the average American. Yeah. If you look at the data, the data is clear. 60 to 70%, some polls show it even higher, of people are actually for the concept Medicare for all. They're for the concept. But then when you talk about the version that Bernie Sanders is pushing, that number drops down to under 40%, all right? It's at about 37, 38%. Why is that? Because in Bernie Sanders' proposal, you have to lose all of the supplemental, all of the private factors go away, and you have this single payer, this one dynamic option from the government. Unfortunately, people just don't trust the government that much, right? No. There's no option there. But more so than the technicality of if Bernie Sanders thinks it's the best or not. The problem, Senator Sanders, is that the majority of Americans don't. Right. And by you continuing to push this as if most Americans aren't saying, hey, we're not down with that plan. Yes. And that's something Joe Biden brought out in one of the early debates. He says, listen, you guys are on the wrong side of the American people on this. Yes. The majority of them don't like this version of it.
Yes. And do you remember, I'll say real quickly, we can move on. Do you remember that moment, I believe, in Iowa, when Kamala Harris, or I believe it was Kamala Harris, was at a senior center. And that woman said she was in her chair, and Kamala walked up behind her, and she kind of grabbed Kamala and said, don't you mess with my health insurance. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
It was really a moment that was like, whoa.
But see, this is a serious issue. Once again, you're looking for votes. You're running a campaign. You got to listen to people. Yeah. Okay? And if you show yourself to be tremendously inflexible, I think that's a turnoff. Let me tell you one of the best things I think Bloomberg did. When Bloomberg actually responded to Elizabeth Warren's challenge, all right, he did not have to respond to Senator Warren. He didn't have to go out and look through 40 years of records and do a limited amount of NDA disclosure. He didn't have to do any of that. All right, he didn't have to change his actual company policy moving forward, saying they're now eliminating NDAs. What that told me is that, number one, he's flexible. Number two, he's trying to actually become president of the United States. And number three, he's responsive. Now, you can still argue on if he did enough. That's debatable all day. But did he do something because of what he heard during a debate? Yes. Yes, he did. Has any other candidate changed a policy position just because of what happened on the debate stage? I would argue no.
Probably not in a debate stage, but maybe just speaking to having a different message for different crowds.
I agree,
debates,
right? That's the political thing.
That's the political thing.
Yeah.
But just going back to Bernie for one moment too, I heard only just there in that last segment we heard a little bit about the Cuba stuff with Bernie and his comments. I was a little surprised because I thought they'd go a lot harder on him for that. And I will say, before we came out tonight, I did read from the AP, a pair of Floridians are asking a state court to remove Senator Sanders from Florida's primary March 17th. A lawsuit filed in Leon County argues that Sanders is an independent and not a Democrat. So that's on top of this Cuba issue. Florida's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and they're technically correct. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. He caucused with the Democrats.
That's right.
Democrats actually have run candidates against him as an independent U.S. Senate candidate. But he did make a declaration early in this campaign to actually now be a bona fide Democrat. He made that declaration early, or they were going to pounce him on that in this primary. So we'll see. I mean, the guy's definitely left-leaning, but he has not been a Democrat except for when he's qualified to run for president.
That's right. A declaration only means is words.
Right.
It means nothing when your policies say the otherwise. All right, let's hear what Tom is saying.
Okay, and your motto? My motto, every day I write a cross on my hand to remind myself to tell the truth and do what's right, no matter what.
All right, thank you, Mr. Steyer.
Let me see the cross.
I'd say the biggest misconception is that I'm boring, because I'm not. Then I would say that my motto is the words of one of my political mentors, Paul Wellstone, who's sadly no longer with us. And he said that politics is about improving people's lives. And that's been my life. From when my grandpa was an iron ore miner and the unions, politics made those mines safer. And when my dad needed treatment, it was...
So this was a little bit of a twist, all right? It's not hardcore words you live by, previous statements. It's actual mottos.
This is just This is her final pitch.
Service got her through. And then when our daughter was born, and he couldn't swallow, that was my life.
What was the motto?
What was your motto? I'm sorry.
My motto was that politics is about improving people's lives.
Got it. Vice President Biden, biggest misconception.
Good one.
Yeah, it was a very good one. Very good one.
We need to knock down, get up, and everyone's entitled to be treated with dignity, no matter what, no matter who they are. Also, that everyone should be represented. No one's better than me, and I'm no better than anyone else. The fact is, what we should be doing, we talked about the Supreme Court. I'm looking forward to making sure there's a black woman on the Supreme Court to make sure we in fact get every representation. Not a joke. Not a joke. I pushed very hard for that. And my mother's motto was, she said, you're defined by your courage, you're redeemed by your loyalty. I am loyal, I do what I say.
What's the biggest misconception about you, sir?
Oh, no!
I do.
We missed that. Can somebody message us what he said there?
Senator Sanders.
Misconception.
Yes.
Misconception, and you're hearing it here tonight, is that the ideas I'm talking about are radical. They're not. In one form or another, they exist in countries all over the world. Healthcare is a human right. We have the necessity, the moral imperative to address the existential threat of climate change. Other countries are doing that. We don't need more people in jail, disproportionately African American, than any other country on earth. Not a radical idea. The motto, the saying that moves me the most is from Nelson Mandela. And Mandela said, everything is impossible until it happens. And that means if we have the guts to stand up to powerful special interests, we're doing phenomenally well. If we can bring working people together, black and white and Latino, we can create a nation.
All right, Senator.
Where all people have a good standard of living.
Senator Warren.
A good standard of living?
Well, I suppose one misconception is that I don't eat very much. In fact, I eat all the time. Because I get teased about this. Look, I never was supposed to be on a stage like this. And the misconception in the United States, no. I got into this because I am a fighter. My motto ties in directly to this. It's Matthew 25. And that is, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of these, the least of thy brethren, ye have done it unto me. For me, this is about...
She used the King's English. Nobody goes King James Version anymore. She did.
That's why I am running to be president, and it is why I will be an effective president.
Thank you, Senator.
Ladies and gentlemen, she went full King James Version on you, okay?
What does that say to you?
She said it like she knows it, like for real.
You don't think she does?
Who still reads like old school King James Version?
It's on the Bible app. You can pick the version.
You can. There's an app for that.
Important to approach all of that with.
I gotta check my settings. I think mine's on the King James.
Is it the old school one though?
No, I don't think I'd be able to.
Yeah, it's the new one. It's the
I
new
think
school
so.
version.
I would never impose my interpretation of my religion on anybody. Just as sure as I'm wearing this ring, I'll never let that happen to anybody. But I
Well,
seek
your
to
words
live by the
speak
teachings that
differently,
say that
in my
if you
opinion.
would be a leader, you must first be a servant. And of course, the teaching, not unique to the Christian tradition, but a big part of it, that holds that we are to treat others as we would be treated. And when I think about everything at stake, from racial and economic justice to our stewardship of the climate to the need to heal the sick and the need to heal this country, I seek for
The
those
hair on the
teachings
head.
to order
Yeah,
my steps
cute.
as I go through this campaign and as I go through life.
Thank you.
Oh, Buddy said I have more hair on my head than I think I
Misconception that I'm 6 feet tall. And
Aw,
quote,
bless
I've trained for this job for a long time, and when I get it, I'm going to do something rather than just talk about it.
Thank you, candidate. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
He can kind of joke about himself. Cool.
No, we have time for one more break, Laura. One more break.
Oh, what?
Otherwise, we're having fun. You're watching the Democratic debate right here on CBS.
Well, that was a nice opportunity for them to show a little bit of personality there, I thought. Just take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Step back a moment.
Yeah.
That was really intense. That was an intense 2 hours.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
All right. So Bloomberg has never laughed at himself. I've never seen him laugh at himself. His last comment where he said the misconception is that I'm 6 feet tall was, I think, as close as you're going to get to a Bloomberg kind of taking himself not so seriously.
Yeah.
Right? So what were your thoughts? Winners, losers, biggest
Oh, gosh.
breakout?
I didn't think that there were any breakouts.
Yeah.
Sean Gables asked a question here. Who in your mind came out on top if you had to pick one? Sean, honestly, I didn't think any of them did. Because here, and let me tell you why really quickly. I didn't get, there was a little bit of policy discussion in there. I felt like most of it was high strung, high energy, defensiveness, just kind of a sporadic energy. And I just didn't feel, a lot of folks were on the defense, understandable, but I think you take a step back, and just as important as somebody's policy is can you envision that person standing up and being the president of the United States? And if you put any one of those candidates on a debate stage with President Trump, in my opinion, he would destroy them. I didn't see somebody, I think when you're choosing a president of the United States, you want somebody who is strong, confident, powerful, decisive, and I just saw a lot of people there that were just kind of, I didn't see that. I didn't see those qualities.
Well, here's my take on it.
Policies aside, I didn't see those qualities.
I actually think Steyer did himself a lot of favors tonight. I think if I have to name a winner, because I don't think anybody really lost, Biden did better than he's done before. All of the candidates were okay. Bloomberg was a little better than before, but he wasn't great either. But if there was one candidate that stood out, not only based on historical performance, but also based on what happened tonight on that debate stage, I would have to inch it out to Steyer. He said more than he said before. He showed himself to increase his political platform more than just the environment, which he's been on the environment so hard, I think it alienated a lot of voters, because when you ask the average voter, the environment is not number one. It's always top 10, but the environment is typically never number one on their political agenda. I think he's finally getting that message. I do think Bernie Sanders at multiple times has seemed to be angry and not able to handle the pressure from both sides. Yeah.
And can you imagine Bernie negotiating with a powerful foreign government?
I got to tell you, I couldn't imagine Trump negotiating with a foreign government, because he showed himself to be a similar way during his own debates as well. Remember, those Republican debates got very chaotic, and a lot of that was because of how then candidate Trump came after other Republicans. And remember, the entire argument about Trump at that time was, is he presidential? Can he be diplomatic? Like, so the same discussion we're having about some of these Democratic candidates, many Republican gatekeepers were saying that about then candidate Trump. And then you get Trump in a general election where you have a very calm, a very poised, real politician debating an off-the-cuff, sometimes emotional, sometimes brass candidate, and he wins the debates. He wins them on style at that.
And I think being presidential is different than being unable to control your emotions.
Yeah.
I think those are two different things.
I think Bernie Sanders is the one that did seem like he was losing it every now and then. Joe Biden was right at the cliff, right? Because we could see the lip kind of quivering.
Yes.
We could really feel that. The person that was probably the most calm through all of it, I would say
Amy
Klobuchar just didn't seem rattled at all, but still had enough personality to where she did not go to the place of boring like Bloomberg. And I got to say this also about Mayor Pete. Not a breakout night for him. I think he played it safe many times. I don't think he wanted to really rough and tumble like he did before. Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple of standout moments.
Okay.
Like if you could think of one or two little things that stand out in your head that you'll go home tonight and say, wow, or that you think people will be talking about for the next week.
The eye roll.
That big eye roll.
The eye roll, right? Because I think that's translatable into a universe where things go viral, right? So I think people are going to pick up on that, right? Exactly. So people will see that. As far as words, I don't know if the words, other than when Joe Biden kind of talked about is unfair for men on this stage. I just don't think that was the right thing for Joe Biden to say. Okay. Yes, he was frustrated. Yes, a lot of people broke the rules, and yes, the moderators allowed it. That simply means, Joe, you have to play at the speed of the game. That's what you got to do. All right. Standing up there, being the former vice president of the United States, and complaining that women are being treated better than you, because that's really what you're saying. When you're saying men aren't being treated fairly, you're saying women are being treated more fairly. Really? In a world or in a Democratic Party that says part of their platform that women are not treated fairly at all. That's part of the platform. You're standing on the Democratic debate stage saying, no. It's actually us men who are not being treated fairly. That is a disconnect to the overall platform and message of the Democratic Party.
I think one of the moments, too, that really stood out for me was kind of early on. I think it was before the first commercial had even taken place, when Elizabeth Warren went straight in to Bloomberg, and she had initially she went into the same, a lot of you may recognize this if you've been following this, she went in word for word verbatim on her stump speech, one of her little stump stories. That has, by the way, several outlets have debunked and say people are saying she's lying with regards to when she tells the story about she was working as a professor and she was pregnant, visibly pregnant. She uses that terminology, and then somebody said she needs to, essentially she got fired for being pregnant is what she claims. That's been again debated, but she went into that story verbatim, and to me, anytime you do that, it's just so canned.
And remember, I said to you then, I'm looking for the connection. It did not seem to connect with the response she was supposed to give to Bloomberg.
Yes.
And I said, I'm waiting to figure out why is this connected to this.
Yes.
And it wasn't.
Yes.
What was that about? That politicians do it all the time on both sides of the political aisle. That was simply about her landing a point to show even deeper contrast between her and candidate Bloomberg. It, however, backfired.
It backfired, and because she used her story, she said, aha, I have this great story and I can use that to pivot into an attack on Bloomberg, which was, you told an employee she needed to have an abortion. And so I just think that on all sides of that, I think that failed. She had some really, I think, powerful zingers in the Nevada.
Yeah. She didn't have those tonight.
She didn't have those tonight, and I think that one in particular she had planned out.
Yeah.
And it failed.
You know what really happened? And remember, these candidates, they sit down, they go through hours and hours and hours of debate prep, and you have these specialists, these experts who come in, and these experts say, okay, do this here. Make sure you do that there. Anytime you win a debate, and typically when you actually win a debate, it's not because you had great debate preparation, you just had great instinct. You had great instinct during the debate. You went on your instinct, it worked, and now all of a sudden, you bring on all these people that coach you away from your instinct. They coach you away from your authenticity. And that's what I saw, at least early, with Senator Warren. I did not see the same authentic approach with Senator Warren. I saw an approach that seemed more strategic.
Right.
Yeah.
Who do you think, speaking of that, who do you think is the least tonight authentic performance?
Oh, the least authentic performance. That is so tough. The least authentic. Based on tonight, only tonight, okay? The guy who came across as the least authentic, to me, would be Mayor Pete.
That's what I was going to say. Based on some of the comments that you had made, you and I said earlier, I would agree. I think he did. He came out as the least authentic. Kind of a little bit of that feeling of maybe pandering a little bit. He had his canned lines. I think he... and maybe it could be, and I don't know if you guys agree at home, let me know, but there was also that side-by-side video that went viral today. Did you see that? Of Mayor Pete saying a lot of the very same words that President Obama used when he was. Did you see that? And it was like, I get it. Sometimes messaging, it's, you may,
but
there
there's
may be some overlap, but that was...
There's a fine line between messaging and mimicry. And when you look at that video, it seems more like he's mimicking President Barack Obama than kind of adopting his message, because even his speech tone and the cadence of how he said it was similar to President Barack Obama. That's going to become a problem. I don't know if at any point this becomes a story for him. Like right now, it's definitely a social media buzz. But if there's more video like this, where it seems like this guy was practicing in front of a mirror. Right?
That's what it felt like. And his debate, I think that coming off the heels of seeing that video today. And that's why I think it, may have been effective.
But they avoided a couple of things. Like Joe Biden avoided the question about, sir, do you know that you're running for president of the United States and not the U.S. Senate? He was like, that didn't come up, right?
That's right.
I think some people say, okay, that's not fair. It is fair when you're talking about running for president.
That's right.
Because you just said you're running for something else. We need to talk about why you said that. And at least give the candidate room to explain. Because this is going to remain a question in the back of voters' minds. And if you don't have an opportunity to say, hey, I made a mistake. There was a time when Barack Obama, he was running for president. Barack Obama, candidate Obama, said he had been to 57 states. Now, we all know there are only 50 states, right? The man said 57 states, and then said he had 2 more to go to, right? That became viral. It went everywhere. But you know what? Nobody.
I remember that.
Yeah, it did. You Google it right now. This is the first thing, like say Obama, 57 states, first thing that pops up. Nobody questioned if Obama was mentally unprepared. They all knew it was a gaffe. He came out later and said basically he was tired. But if I was Joe Biden, I would want to answer that. And I would want to say, listen, even the young Barack Obama made some gaffes. We're working 24 hours a day. We have unbelievable schedules. I made a mistake.
You're exhausted.
I'm exhausted.
And you know that, and you understand that. But golly, it is hard to look at Biden at this point and say that, yeah, they're just gaffes. That's just Joe. I think that was said in the first, couple months that he was running. But there's just so frequent, and they're so significant. Just the other day was saying that one of his sons, the son that had passed away, was the Attorney General. I mean, some of these things are just, I think people are saying
they pile up. They pile up. And remember,
pile up.
he has to win a Democratic primary. That is the point of this entire contest. And these things weigh on the minds of voters.
And again, it goes back to being a viable, strong, confident, positive, somebody who's portraying strength. Is that Biden? Not from what I saw tonight. Is that Mayor Pete? Not from what I saw tonight. Is that from Bernie Sanders? Not from what I saw tonight. And go down the list. So that being said, Rashad, who do you think on that stage can viably take on President Trump in the election?
Well, let me say this. Based on polling data, I think all of them can. Every single candidate on that stage, except for Mayor Pete, by the way. Mayor Pete is within the margin of error. But every single candidate on that stage, based on polling, actually defeats Donald Trump outside of the margin of error, except for Mayor Pete. So you're looking at a very polarized political atmosphere. It's very tribal. So while people are talking about and debating on these candidates, here's what will happen once there's a nominee for the party. We will forget about all of this. When I say we, I'm talking about us as the voter, people in the electorate, right? We're going to forget about all of these conflicts and all of this chaos and all of this argumentation. It's going to be an entirely different world. It is going to be a world of every single one of those Democrats and some, including candidates who won't make the stage anymore. All of them will acquiesce to the one Democratic nominee. They're going to sing Kumbaya, and it will be an entirely different atmosphere.
Even Sanders?
Even Sanders. Even Sanders. Even Bloomberg. All of them. Every single one of them. And a lot of that is because President Trump has done something quite amazing, but quite damaging at the same time. What has he done that's amazing? He has created his own lane of victory, absent of the Republican machine, absent of the Democratic machine to defeat him. He has made that happen, okay? He knows how to win without getting the popular vote and still winning the Electoral College. He knows the 10 states he simply has to get, because there are some states that are going to vote Republican. There's some states that are going to vote for the Democrat. There's nothing he can do about it. So really it comes down to 10 states. He knows that, right? He understands the science. So he's been able to polarize himself into this victory lane. The problem with that is this. That means he only has one lane to win it. He has to win it this way. Democrats have multiple ways to do this. They can be coalition builders as they used to be, where they bring together all of these various backgrounds. They can also do it through increased voter turnout, like Barack Obama did when he ran for the first time. It was a heightened voter turnout that did it for him. Or they can do it by seeming Republican light and basically having a lot of those who would have voted for Trump say, you know what? I don't like how Trump talks. I don't like the example he sets for my children. I couldn't vote for Bernie Sanders, but I vote for Bloomberg over Trump. So those are multiple ways to victory that Democrats actually have, where Trump has his one lane still. Just my take.
See, and I think that there are states that are now in play for Trump that folks maybe wouldn't have even fathomed before. And I think that he's being very strategic right now in that every city and every state where they go, he goes.
Oh, man.
Before, right?
That's been the underreported news, though. But you're right. He's there in every state.
He's there. And he's getting huge crowds.
Yes.
And there is absolutely validity to that. You can't argue otherwise.
Right.
People are showing up in huge numbers saying, I like what's going on right now in this country. I like what you're doing, and I want to give you 4 more years. And even though, people will say, well, he's an incumbent, he's probably going to win, they could easily stay home. Why go? He's not up on this debate stage. He's not, he's not having to do the work that these folks are. But yet, these residents in all these cities, they're coming still in droves. Why? A lot of people say, well, they're to prove a point. To prove a point.
Trump is a superstar. He was a superstar before he ran for president. I mean, he was a celebrity. He is still a celebrity. He has a celebrity appeal about him as president. But so does Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a superstar of sorts to many liberals and progressives in the Democratic movement. If you're talking about matching energy for energy, I would put Bernie Sanders supporters up against Trump supporters any day, okay? Because that's an energy for energy matchup. And Bernie Sanders does excite the base of supporters. Here's what I would caution Democrats on. I think it was 1972. But let me talk about McGovern. Senator McGovern, pro-Flower Child, anti-war, anti-Nixon, Democratic U.S. Senator. He was the pride and joy of the Flower Child generation. The marijuana smoking, the live free and let live. He was that guy. He personified their hopes. He wins the Democratic nomination. People were excited. And I tell this story because I don't want people to neglect the argument of electability. McGovern wins, everybody's happy. Democrats jumping up for joy. He brought in the crowds. He brought the excitement. That guy proceeded to lose 49 out of 50 states.
I saw that. Where was that? What year was that again?
I think it was 72.
Okay.
But he lost such a stunning way. Just was annihilated. That's when the argument of electability first started for Democrats. And Democrats started to make nominees people like Bill Clinton, who was not a liberal, not a progressive, a moderate in every sense of the word, because now they were figuring, oh my God, our core guys can't win general elections.
That's right. And that's what we were saying earlier to a degree is policy is important. We need to hear your policy.
Yeah.
But equally as important is your presence and
right.
your likability.
Ability to connect.
Your ability to connect.
Yeah.
You have to just sit back on your couch at home and as we did here today, and just how do you feel? How does that person make you feel when you hear them speak? And that's why it's so important to have a cool head and to state your case and to be authentic. And a lot of folks would argue that there was some trouble on that stage tonight with that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, folks are saying, hey, realistically, again, anything can happen. We saw that with the last election. It's going to come down to Trump and Sanders. Let me ask you an interesting question. We know Sanders is very steadfast in his beliefs. He's a democratic socialist, is self-proclaimed as such.
Right.
Can he afford to bring on a VP that matches him in his ideology, or does he have to bring on somebody who's more moderate in order to get people out to vote who are those mainstream Democrats?
Yeah, he can't pick anybody that's a mirror image of him.
Like a Stacey Abrams, or like, people, she's too young, but an AOC and all that stuff.
Well, I don't know if Stacey Abrams is the same kind of progressive as an AOC. Even though she is a progressive, she has bona fide, what I call woke credibility. But I don't think she's on the same spectrum as a Bernie Sanders when you look pound for pound on things she's voted on while being a state representative for Georgia. Okay? Now, does that mean her ideology couldn't change? Of course it could change, right? A lot of people change when they get national, but looking at her voting record while she was in the Georgia legislature, it does not insinuate that she was some kind of off-the-chain liberal, okay? Beyond that, I question if Bernie Sanders can clinch the nomination based on the delegate count. And I say that because if these candidates stay in the race, and there's such a natural split, every state they go to, they get this split, right? You don't get the actual number you need in order to automatically win. If that doesn't happen for Bernie Sanders, I don't see gatekeepers of the Democratic Party giving this guy their superdelegate votes. I don't see that happening. And you got in round two, if you don't clinch it in round one, in round two, you now have opened up the door for over 700 delegates, additional delegates, who can vote however they choose to vote. They are released to vote how they want to. I don't see half of them voting for Bernie Sanders.
Well, and that's what you were alluding to earlier, that your bet is that this is going to be brokered.
It's a brokered convention. A lot of Democrats don't like that term. They like to say contested convention, but it is a brokered convention because you literally have to have teams go down and broker votes. It's called horse trading, and they literally horse trade votes. So let me tell you how that convention floor looks, because I've been on that convention floor before. And the way it looks is, hey, here's our policy. Will you adopt our policy? Will you adopt our agenda? No, we can't adopt all of it, but here's what we will adopt. And so there's a horse trading, but at least they're trading policies rather than paying people off. All right, which brings me to my next potential. There's nothing against the law for actually paying delegates.
Really?
No, that's right. There's no law that says you can't do it. Some candidates have done it.
Well, then Bloomberg,
Exactly. He's like, broker convention, here we come.
Here we come. You know, that will be interesting. A lot of people hopefully will be there to cover that when it happens, because that would be monumental. A lot of people are saying that'll happen. But boy, we are steamrolling ahead.
Yes.
You know, Sean Gables has some interesting comments here. What is next for Joe Biden if he backs out of the race? Hopefully retirement.
Yeah, he definitely has to retire. But before retirement, he needs to back somebody. Okay? He's still, I mean, regardless of if he gets out or not, there are still a lot of people. They may not say, hey, Joe is my guy, I'm voting for him for president. There are way more people in the Democratic Party who says, man, I like Joe.
Yeah.
I like him. I trust him. I think he's a good person. His endorsement may mean even more than his candidacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, that's an interesting point. And Sean just messaging here again, Tulsi Gabbard. You know, Sean, we talked about that earlier on. You're absolutely right. Tulsi Gabbard being shut out of this debate, and virtually all of them. She was in one or two at the very beginning, and she's virtually been shut out. And I have yet to really hear why. Well, they would point to the rule, right?
Right, because of the rules,
but
right?
We know the rules can be bent because we've seen that happen. So, you know, are the rules really the rules, or are they just, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, but you know, it's the golden rule, and the golden rule is whoever has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah,
and
right.
that's why you've seen, and I brought this up even on my show. Bloomberg gave $300,000 to the DNC in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all of a sudden, when he decides to run for president, the DNC decides to change the rules to eliminate the independent donor requirement.
Right.
By eliminating the independent donor requirement, it only changed the reality of one candidate, and it was Bloomberg. Mm-hmm. So ironically, the one rule change of the DNC only affected Bloomberg's ability to now get into the debates.
Yeah. I will say quickly with Tulsi Gabbard, I think, in my opinion, the Democratic Party is hurting themselves by not allowing her more of a platform to participate. I think in the debates I've seen, and anytime I've seen her, and you guys let me know if you agree, anytime I've seen her speak in interviews on camera, boy, she is poised, she is confident, she has those characteristics that I was just talking about a few minutes ago. And so I think they're doing a disservice to themselves.
Well, I think, but I don't think it started with Tulsi. I think the DNC did a disservice by not listening to Cory Booker, by not listening to Senator Harris, by not listening to the Congressional Black Caucus when they went to Perez, the DNC chair, and said, listen, you're going to have to relax these standards to make sure we have minority participation. We are the Democratic Party. We have to show a diverse group. And I think it started there. So while Tulsi is still running, she's running for president, she definitely performed very well in the early debates because people say, man, she looked really presidential, right? I think she's made some mistakes too. And I think the biggest mistake she made was the way she came after Hillary Clinton. You could clap back at Hillary Clinton and not.
Hillary Clinton, to be fair, called her a Russian asset.
She did, which was crazy.
Crazy.
And I didn't think Hillary Clinton meant it, but a lot of people did, right? But after that, I mean, Tulsi actually filed a lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, right? So remember, whatever your thoughts are about Hillary Clinton, she is still the former nominee for president of this same Democratic Party that Tulsi is looking to become the nominee for herself, right? It's like going after President Barack Obama and thinking you're not going to get a backlash in the party. And there's a backlash now. Yeah. She's not raising as much money as she did in the beginning. Yeah. She's not qualifying for these debate stages, and she has no win with the DNC.
Yeah, No, it's true. All right, so let's real quickly, before we wrap up tonight. So we've got, so the debates tonight. Saturday is the South Carolina primary. The race between these, or the polls are kind of...
Yeah, Biden is losing a little support with African Americans. He's still 15 points up. He needs to win South Carolina by 20 points plus.
Okay, but who do you think will win? Biden?
I think Biden still wins the state, but it's not about who wins the state. It's about how much you win the state by, because that determines the delegate count.
Yeah.
If he just wins the state, let's say he wins the state by 2 points, not good enough. You need to drop out, because South Carolina is the place you need to dominate the market, come in with a lot of delegates. If you can't win South Carolina by more than 20% of the vote, your campaign is on life support.
Yeah. Well, I've got a bold prediction.
Okay.
Actually, don't hold me to this. It's really not a prediction. I'm just going to say, I think Tom Steyer is going to surprise us, I think, in South Carolina. I think he's going to surprise us. I think he's going to do really well. If he doesn't place first, I think he's going to place second. Or it's really
that's a
close.
big one. Now remember, South Carolina is what's called a threshold state. So in order to get any delegates out of the state, you have to get at least 15% of the vote. So everybody's pushing to at least make that threshold, because for the debates moving forward, you need to at least have at least one delegate to qualify for the next debates. Okay?
Yep, and then we're rolling after that. I think, 3 days after the South Carolina primary, we then have Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we are in the home stretch. Well, not the home stretch, but at least for this process. So,
yeah, this is when people start dropping out.
That's right.
Right,
We really
when you see the performance. Yep.
It's been so much fun.
It's been dope. I love it.
Hey,
I love
thank
it.
you guys so
Really
much
cool.
for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank
Hope you
y'all.
enjoyed the coverage. And you can hop on over to CBS 46 News at 11, because we're going to have a full recap and coverage there. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
That went by really fast.
It did. And it was actually
The debate itself.
all of it. And it was actually like 2 hours and